but it's not really what we're here for. So really becoming financially independent gives us that opportunity to really go out and do our purpose, which is actually helping others as well as ourselves. So that's sort of why we're here.
Wonderful. Very, very exciting. Thank you for being here. It was great having Angela on last week, and I know she'll be joining us at the workshop as well, which is really good. So, Deji, what about for you?
Okay, well, I'm a serial entrepreneur right now. I mean, maybe at the core, I'm into personal development and training. And if you see my backdrop says Better Me Series, which is an initiative I have, which is basically aimed at equipping both career and business professionals. So I mean, we met at a training in Los Angeles earlier in the year, and we had some conversations around what you were doing, which was quite intriguing to me. So, in fact, when my brother told me that he had been on this meet earlier, I was offended, and I said I wasn't going to call you anymore. That we weren't friends anymore. So I mean, and because of course I'm also in ministry as well. I really wanted to learn more about, creating, seeing how to properly get the ministry side or the kingdom side of things with the operative business side of things to dovetail. That's what I'm really interested in.
Awesome. I had to get to your brother before I could get to you. Or let me say, I got to you through your brother. because I said some controversial things in LA that you were like, what? This guy is a man of God and he's saying these things.
No, we chatted.
So I'm glad you're on. And really, really appreciate it. It's great. Sandy and John, welcome. Good to see you on. Sandy, good to see you on again. And John, welcome. You guys, good to say what's made you come on here. And John, don't say mom forced me. No, I'm just kidding. I know what moms are like. My mom just celebrated the 72nd birthday. Please don't tell her I told you her age. I'll be killed. But I know what moms are like. No, welcome, John.
Thank you.
Why are you here?
Sure.
No, I'm glad I invited you to come, and I'm glad you made it, John. Thank you for. I think it's been really great seeing you sign up for the that Forex stuff, and just I think this will give you a bit more of a big picture of some of the things that may look forward to for some of the others as well, just in what retirement looks like, what right now looks like, what income looks like immediately without in COVID times. So I think it just gives you a bigger perspective, which is great. And Sandy, anything you hope to get from today?
I think just refreshing, although I've gone over the three of you amazing men 1,000 times, just to hear, more, because every time you listen, you hear something a little bit different. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's encouraging because it shows that there is something that you can do about where we're at.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate those who have just said so, and because of time, we want to get started. We have 3 presentations. They're about 40 minutes in length each, and so it's about 2.5-hour program. And we just want to honor the time that you guys have here. But they come from 3 perspectives. Naresh will introduce the perspectives in a couple of minutes. But one of the things that that I appreciate about Naresh and Matthew, who will join us in a few minutes, is that we're all ministers of God as well as full-time business people. And that's important to us for our purpose. And from a faith base, we look at practicalities that move together with that. So every morning, every time we run these, I always ask the Lord, what's a scripture that would be a prophetic word for each one that's turned up today. because I take God's word seriously, because I know that when he says something, he'll do it. And I've seen him taken me from nothing to so much, to steward so much, because I've just based it on his word. So the word that came to me is the word that you're probably all familiar with. It's in the scriptures where Jesus says, a wise man builds his house upon the rock, and a foolish man builds his house upon the sand. And he says, those that build their house upon the rock are those that build upon my word. Like, if you believe my word, and if you do it, your house will be firm. So the structure of the house doesn't matter as much as the foundation. And so a lot of people are building wealth in ways that haven't got a proper foundation. And so we're hoping, today, just as we share with you, that you start to see the foundations being built, but you also see some very practical things. We're also, on the other hand, mindful that a lot of church people talk about the spiritual things of God wants to bless you, but doesn't give us practical stuff. All right. But we come from a faith base, so we know that the connection of the two is really powerful, because God wants to bless you. He has no desire to curse you. He says, the plans I have for you are good plans, to prosper you, to give you a future and a hope. So I just want to pray for 5 minutes, if that's okay with you. For 5 minutes, no, for a few seconds, and then I'll pass it off to Naresh. Father, thank you for this time. And we just appreciate that we can come together even in this season of COVID. We can come together and just get to know you, get to hear your words, and also build something better for the future. Build something better in our finances. Build something that you want us to steward well for our future, but also for kingdom future. So we thank you for knowledge and wisdom, and for practicality that would come in, for revelation, in Jesus' name. Amen. Naresh, over to you. Welcome, and thank you, Naresh, again for being here to present.
Thank you. Good evening again. I am Naresh, and I'm trying to share. You can see my screen now, right?
Yep.
Right. By way of an introduction, I want you to think of a tetrahedron. It is a triangular-based pyramid. It's got 3 vertices on the base and 1 vertex always pointing to heaven, right? It doesn't matter how you rotate this. It doesn't matter how you tumble this. It will, the world goes around and you can tumble it all you like. But when this tetrahedron comes and stops at equilibrium, there will always be 3 vertices on the base and 1 vertex pointing to heaven. So this is the model that we use, right? The 3 of us. 1 vertex at the base represents increasing residue in order to gain through investment. Now, that's what I specialize in this course. The other vertex represents investment for gain, wealth creation. That's what Matthew will talk to you about. The 3rd vertex at the base represents entrepreneurship, where you will use entrepreneurship in order to multiply your wealth, multiply your gain. That's what Ruben specializes in. But here's the thing, always, it doesn't matter which 3 vertices are on the base, there's 1 vertex that always points to heaven. Everything we're going to teach you is ancient wisdom. It's from the Bible. It comes from the Word of God. We make no apologies for this, because if the Jewish people from days of old have always been blessed, even when things were going bad for them, there must be some truth in all this, right? So hang with us for a few minutes, and let me just go through 3 Bible verses that will passages of scripture that will bring this all together. In Matthew 25, 14 to 30, it talks about the parable of the talents. One guy was given 5 talents and he made 5 more. Another guy was given 2 talents and he made 2 more. One guy was given 1 talent, he buried it in the ground and he said, you're a very, very hard taskmaster. I didn't want to lose the money. Here's your talent back. And God was upset with him. There are 2 things that bothered me about this when I first read it. One is that God was bothered with the guy who protected his cash. The other thing is that he gave one guy 5 and another guy 2 and a third guy 1. It sounds like discrimination. Until I read a small sentence in this parable that said, according to their ability. So, we can always sit and look at somebody else and say, oh, Donald Trump has more money, so he can make more money. We are not comparing ourselves to one another here. We are responsible for the talent God gives us. We are responsible to multiply. The second passage is 1 Corinthians 4 verse 2. Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. We are supposed to faithfully execute our responsibilities as unto the Lord here on this earth. And part of that is managing our finances. Right? Part of that is us being faithful in taking what God has given us, using it for life, and then investing and trying to multiply it. That's why we are on this earth. Remember, in the Garden of Eden, God planted the garden. God had the rivers water the garden. Man was put there to just tend the garden. Interestingly, except for the fruit of one tree, man was allowed to eat of every single other tree in the garden. Now, God provided the food, God provided the garden, God watered the garden, God planted the garden, man had to tend it. So we are expected to tend the garden that God gives us. If you're a doctor, medicine is your garden. If you're a lawyer, law is your garden. If you're an engineer, engineering is your garden, and so on and so forth, right? The third couple of passages, Luke 16:10 and Luke 19:17 says that he that is faithful in that which is little is faithful in much. So here's the interesting thing. We are expected to be, now let's put all this together. We are expected to be faithful with what God has given us. And we are expected to be good stewards of what God has given us, not what God has given somebody else. So, taking these truths, let's go by way of an outline. My objectives are today to teach you or to present to you a concept called true cost of money, and we'll go into that. I want to define inflows, outflows, and residue for you. And I want to suggest that our goal should be to maximize our residue, because that's being faithful. That's being smart with what God has given us, right? So let's dive into the topic. What is the true cost of money? Take federal income tax, take state income tax. And you guys don't have this, I know, but your taxes are equally high. You'll find that out as we go along, right? Take state sales tax that we have here in America. Take social security tax that we have in America, which we will never get because actually our taxes are paying for all the people who are retired now. By the time we retire, that fund will be done, right? And we have Medicare tax. Medicare tax is tax for medicine for those who have retired. It all amounts to a whopping 32.275%. What does this mean to us? That for every dollar I earn, the US government takes 25.65 cents. That's 25.65% of my money. I don't see it. It comes towards me. It says hi, it waves by, it bypasses my bank account and goes into the treasury. That's what the government uses. Now, in addition to that, our state governments have the ability to levy sales taxes. So out of every dollar I spend, I have to give 6.625 cents to my state. Now in Tennessee, in some parts of Tennessee, it's 10%. So let's bring this together. For me to spend $1, I have to earn $1 roughly and 48 cents. Now that's when I'm in a low income. Remember, taxes go up. The more you earn, the more you pay, right? I have not talked about medical insurance that we pay in America out of our pocket. I have not talked about now with General Donald Trump's tariffs on all the stuff we get from China. We are the ones who are paying the tariff. We, the consumers in America. If you have a tariff in Australia, you, the consumer, are paying that tariff, right? So I know roughly in Australia, you know, if you're earning $150,000, $100,000, you're paying about between 40 and 50% in federal taxes. So for every dollar you spend, you have to earn $1.50. Think about what I'm saying. So you understand how important your spending habits become, right? Now, let me ask you this question. Is earning more the answer to our financial health? Because we are always saying, oh, I want to get that next job so that I can earn more. Oh, I want to do a second job so that I can earn more. Oh, let me get some education so that I can get a higher salary so that I can earn more, right? Rhetorical question, I'm going to answer it because we want to stick to time and respect all of you. The answer is actually yes and no. Because earning more alone, remember I told you, right? The more you earn, the more taxes you pay. So when you earn more, you tend to spend more. Why is that? Why is that? Because we human beings are creatures of habits and mindsets, right? So we have an entitlement mentality. I have worked very hard, so I deserve a treat. That concept. We have a rights mentality. It's my money and I can do what I like with it. We have an over-optimistic outlook. In Australia, they say, she'll come right tomorrow, mate. Here they say, oh, I'm going to get a bonus. So let me, you know, max it out on my credit card. And when the bonus comes, I'll pay for it. What happens when the bonus doesn't come, right? We have flawed values. The Joneses down the street have the Audi. So let me also buy an Audi. The Joneses down the street have bought Tommy Hilfiger. So let me also buy some Tommy Hilfiger. We want to live up to the Joneses. We have cash consuming habits, hobbies, and vices. The most common of which are wine, women, and so on. There are people who can't afford to eat a proper meal, but you know, they will dress up really well and go to a nightclub because that's where they pick up girls or something, right? Entertainment, gambling, expensive vacations, Starbucks. I mean, think about the cost of a cup of coffee, right? Alcohol, narcotics. You know, we say alcohol and narcotics is bad. Alcohol is not so bad. You know, this is not about bad and good. This is about spending habits, right? We have a flawed reasoning. Retail therapy. Oh, I am feeling very down today. So let me go and max out my credit card. I'm going to buy clothes which I really don't need. I'm going to wear them once and then I'm going to throw them away, or I'm going to put them in the closet, right? We have a debt poverty mentality. This is how you live, you know, I don't have the money to pay, you know, I'll put it on my credit card and later on when I have the money, I'll pay it. We also have a compensation mentality. You know, I'm entitled to compensation. In America, this is becoming really bad. We have workers who think that because they get out of bed and come to work, they should get paid. Some of them can't even come on time, right? So we indulge more when our incomes increase. That's normal. I mean, we used to, in Sri Lanka, when we were young and we didn't have money, we used to go and eat at the Those Kade. We used to call it Those Kade because it's the shop that sold Those, the most unhygienic place under the sun. We went and ate there because that's all we could afford. Now, as we become more sophisticated, you know, we want to go to that 5-star restaurant and use our fork and knife and, you know, have a 3-course meal. It's human nature. We spend our money according to habits and according to mindsets, some of which we have to look at ourselves and say are flawed. They're flawed habits, and actually they are flawed mindsets, right? Let me give you some national facts for the USA. The US national debt on March 22nd, 2020, just after COVID hit, was $23.59 trillion. September 14th, it was 26.76 trillion. It went up by 2 trillion in 6 months. 6 months. We're adding $2 trillion to our national debt every 6 months. Think about it. Our expenses in 2019 was 4.5 trillion. Our revenues, our government revenues were 3.46 trillion. We have a deficit of 0.98 trillion. That's 28.61% revenue deficit in 2019. And that deficit is now 1.1 trillion, which is 29.73% of revenue. So let me put this in simple terms. You earn $100,000. You're spending $129,730. So $29,730 over budget, and you owe this mega huge debt. How can the government afford to do this? Can you and I do this? If I ran my home like this, maximum 6 months, I'll be totally bankrupt. How can a national government do this? And the answer is the only reason they can do it, deficit spending, is because they can print money and they can manipulate the value of their currency. You and I can't do that. So we have to find a different formula. See, what is true on a national level becomes true from an individual level as well, right? What the environment does, if we are not careful, we will also do, because we are shaped by our environment. So it depends on which environment you're moving in. I'm telling you this because this will hit home to some of you. Now, from a household credit card standpoint, 2019, 1.04 trillion in credit card debt. Trillion, million, right? 60% of people in this country will not be able to pay their debt, credit card bill. Right? Student loan debt amounts to 1.64 trillion. 45 divided over 45 million borrowers. And I mean, let's not even go into car loan, mortgage debt. Let's not talk into refinance of houses. Let's not talk into debt on debt. You borrow to pay your debt. I mean, this is an endless, dirty, infinite game. And a lot of Christians fall into this trap. Remember, what the spirit that governs the nation is the spirit that will try to influence you. You and I have to live a different lifestyle. So that's a great segue to go into the definition of inflows, outflows, and residue. Usually, a person's working life is an average person about between 30 and 40 years, right? And let's talk about cash inflows. What are cash inflows? Cash inflows are everything that you will receive inflow that flows into your coffers over your lifetime. So we are talking about interest on bank accounts, salary. Remember when you were kids, you went to grandma's house, you went to grandpa's house because you got that $20 gift, that $50 gift. Well, if you were in Sri Lanka, you got 20 rupees. That was a great thing when we were kids, right? 10 rupees was a big sum of money. You could buy a packet of cashew nuts, right? Cash gifts, mom and dad left inheritances, grandma left inheritances, investment income, business income, profit from the sale of stocks and shares, dividends from shares, and the list goes on and on. Please hear me carefully. Most of these things are taxable items. The government takes a share of it before you get it. So let's ask another rhetorical question. What would you do if you were given $1 million? So it's I'm waiting for this, lottery, $1 million. What would I do if I got $1 million? Let me give you some trivia here. If you or I earned $9 an hour from the day we started work, and we only got 25 cents an hour raise once a year, roughly in about 30 something years, we will have 40 years, we will have 30 something years, we will make $1 million, right? 36 years. If on the other hand, we earned $13 an hour every year, and we never got another raise, in 40 years, we'll earn more than $1 million. Now, let's assume that we get married, double that. So, I don't know anybody who's earning $9 an hour. That is subsistence level. In Australia, in America, people are earning a lot more than $9 an hour. So you do understand that we are making more than $1 million in our lifetime. Where does all this money go? A better question would be, what would I do if I got $1 million? How would I optimize the use of that $1 million? That would be a better, a more rational, more concrete type of question. We've defined for you what cash inflows are. I want to define for you what cash outflows are. Cash outflows are all your expenses, and they are listed as follows: shelter, clothing, food. These are necessary expenses. There are mandatory expenses in the form of taxes. There are medical expenses, necessary. There's an education expense. Is it necessary? Is it not? That just depends on why you're pursuing education. Transport is a necessary expense. I mean, the gasoline to go to work and come back, the bus fare to go to work and come back, the amount of money you pay for the car and its upkeep in order for you to be able to go to work and come back. Transport is an essential today. I mean, we're not riding, we're not riding the horse, right? We're all going by car or some kind of motorized transportation. Taxes, entertainment and welfare, that's a discretionary outflow. Oh, I need a treat. Oh, I need to go and see a movie. Oh, let me go and do a Netflix click. $5, there it goes. But actually, a lot of our expenses are taken up in debt. We don't realize this. There are a few things that we get into debt on. One is our house, the biggest debt, biggest single investment we will ever make. It's an investment because you're hoping that the price goes up. So you're buying today in the hope that in 30 years time you'll sell at a better value, right? So that you can cash in and cash out on equity. And the other is all the other debts, such as debt service, such as credit cards, auto loan, student and personal loans. Whether you like it or not, you have to pay back the principal you borrowed plus a service fee, which we call interest. For the privilege of allowing you to use their money, the bank charges you a fee. That's what we call interest. So let me just show you what that amounts to. So I'm going to stop share now and then say share screen. And let me go into this worksheet. Can everybody see this?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Good. Now, good. So let's assume that you have a home loan at 3% interest, 30 years. You're making 12 payments a year. And for simplistic sake, let's take $100,000 as the principal that was borrowed. Watch what happens. In 30 years, you are paying $51,777 in interest. That is 51% of what you borrowed, in addition to what you borrowed, goes to the bank. Let's now change that to you bought a bigger house because you got a better job. I mean, we like to go up market, right? So let's say you borrowed $200,000. it's the same percentage, but you're paying $103,554.90 as interest. You understand why banks don't want you to pay your mortgage, because they make money off you. Now, in America, credit card debt, the interest rate on credit card is roughly 24–25%. So let's assume that we have just a $10,000 credit card debt at 25%. For a $10,000 $10,000 credit card debt at 25%, and I want, let's say I plan to pay it in 5 years. You can't hold credit card for 30 years, right? For 5 years. I pay 76% in interest, $7,610. You see the danger in rolling with debt. This is what robs people of their money, bank interest on credit. So here is an outflow that we have to learn to control, right? Let me get back to sharing my. Good. Let's define the third component, and that is residue. Residue is the amount of money that you keep within your coffers once you have received your inflows and you spent your outflows. So the formula for residue is inflows minus outflows. If inflows minus outflows is greater than 0, you're doing good. Now what we want to do is we want to make it bigger. If inflows minus outflows is equal to 0, you are borderline an accident waiting to happen. Because somewhere in this game, when you need some money for an emergency, you're going to get hit. Because now you won't have, you're spending everything you earn essentially. If inflows minus outflows is less than 0, that means it's a negative number. It means the accident has already happened and you got to do some drastic changes to bring that to where inflows minus outflows is greater than 0. So the optimum state is for us to have money, for us to spend less than we earn. That is good stewardship. Let me give you some numbers from American standpoint. You can only save what you don't spend. Last year, December 2019, these are pre-COVID numbers. 45% of the American population did not have, they had 0, didn't have one cent in their savings account. 24% had less than 1,000. Another 12% had less than 5,000. Add those three together, 45, 55, 65, 69, 70, 81% of the American population had less than $5,000 in their bank account. Now, let me ask you a question. How do you think they got through the COVID-19 shutdown here with less than $5,000 in your bank account when a lot of companies did not pay? A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of companies are closing down. How do you think they're getting through? There are people who are waiting for unemployment. They applied 2 months, 3 months ago. They haven't yet got it. How are they surviving? There goes the credit card. There goes the swipe. There goes the, let me borrow from my mommy. Let me borrow, let me go back. My wife and children are going back to mom. You see this dangerous trap that we all get into. See, America is a consumer economy. We are also a credit-based country. we enjoy today the incomes that we make tomorrow. God forbid that today there should be an emergency. And we all know, right? There's no such thing as a free ride. Everybody has some emergency. You know, the pipe bursts, the sewage line gets blocked, the mouse eats the electric wire and you got to get the contractor in. And what about sickness? What about, oh, the tree falls on the roof and damages the roof? I mean, these things are going to happen. God said, lay up for the winter in the summer. That's what Proverbs says. And guess what? Winter is always going to come. There's always going to be hard times. He didn't promise us a bed of roses. So you understand why it's so important for us to have good financial habits, for us to be good stewards of what God has given us. Right? Our goal in this whole exercise, at least my goal, my part of this whole seminar that we are having, is to show you how to go from the left-hand side of the screen you're seeing to the right-hand side. See the guy who's holding a $200 measly there, and it doesn't even pay. It pays hardly anything these days. That's a little bit less than my heating bill for the winter. When winter comes here, it rages him, right? That $200 won't pay my heating bill. Two, having enough in order for us to have options. Save a little, invest a lot, so that we can begin to multiply what God has given us. So here's the model that we use. The left-hand side of the model is what I usually talk about. I mean, each of us do the whole thing, but from a model standpoint, I focus on increasing residue. And in the seminar that we are going to have, the four-week seminar, I will show you some novel ways of reducing your expenses so that you can maximize your residue. But we will laser focus on this mortgage, this debt payment, how you can actually get out of debt. 11 years, ladies and gentlemen, I'm an average Joe like you guys. 11 years, I paid my mortgage off. And these are not cheap houses, right? We're living in one of the most expensive states in the union. And 11 years, God gave me the grace to pay my mortgage off. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. My daughters will, my second daughter graduated in June, 0 debt. We taught her the principles, she put them into practice. She's graduated with 0 student loans. In this country, student loans are not forgiven. If you have a student loan, you have to pay it even if you declare bankruptcy. She has no student loan. My oldest daughter, she's doing part-time. She will finish this year, and she has told me categorically she will graduate with 0 debt. She took a slightly different path. She went part-time to school, worked full-time. My son is in the US Army, and the US Army has a novel program where you serve 3.5 to 4 years and they pay your university. So you understand, we are not talking to you from some theoretical textbook knowledge that we learned in school. This is stuff we put into practice. I have no debt. My credit card company calls me and says, sir, we're having a 0% 2-year credit card balance transfer, and you have been a very good customer, and we would really like to have you. Please let us know, and we will transfer your balances. And so I listen. I mean, you're Christian people. You don't want to be rude to a man who's trying to do a job, right? So finally, he finishes the whole sales pitch, and I said, but I have a small problem. There is no problem we cannot solve, sir. Let me know. I said, my problem is I don't have a balance to transfer. So everything goes quiet at the other end for about a second or two. And then the guy says, sir, it's a really good problem to have. Thank you for talking to me. And we talk about the Lord, and I'm able to kind of say, I'm a Christian, this is how I live. And I'm able to talk kingdom things from a position of strength. What bothers me, and but I know it bothers Reuben, is that we find Christian people begging for money, Christian preachers begging for money. I go around the world preaching. I preach in Australia, and Ruben zooms me into New Zealand. I preach in Sri Lanka. I preach in Taiwan. I preach in Canada. They give me honorariums, and I say, thank you very much. Put the money in the building fund. I don't need it. I don't want to give God anything that doesn't cost me. This is our philosophy to ministry. This is our call to tell you that, get rid of the distraction of money by being a faithful steward. This is the model. Why am I asking you to save? Why am I going to teach you how to minimize your outflow so that you can line your coffin with dollar notes when they put you into the ground? No. So that you can take that money, and you see the red line going there. Put it in some passive income, some business, in some self-employment venture that will multiply your money many times over. That's what we're trying to do. Okay? So we have covered everything that I needed to cover. Now let me put this to you. Let me present this to you. This 4-week seminar that we're having, we will stress the need for good financial habits, and we'll have a workshop on how you can trim the fat from your expenses. I'm not saying stop drinking coffee. I'm saying, why don't you reduce it? Right? We'll show you how to increase your residue by reducing and eliminating debt and to pay your obligations off quickly. We will laser focus, at least I will laser focus on this, how to deal with your mortgage, how to whip the bank, how to play the bank at their own game. Tell them, come on, let's rumba. Let's talk. Let's see. Let's do a refinance. You see, you will be negotiating from a position of strength, and I will guarantee, I'll give you this guarantee, it's in writing here. If you implement my recommendations where your home loans are concerned, you will save thousands of dollars. You will make up the cost of this seminar in 1 month if you are willing to come on this journey with us. Then Matthew will go and tell you how to invest that money, and Ruben will tell you how. He'll give you a slightly different twist. He'll show you how to become an entrepreneur and to make money without investing too much. In fact, sometimes without investing anything. So I have finished my part of the presentation. I want to give this challenge out to you. Do you want to join us? Because if you will, I'll tell you something that happened in the first series. We had a guy who has a $1.3 million debt portfolio that we're managing, and we already cut off one of his loans. Think about it. And if you're interested, contact Ruben. I'm done, Ruben. Over to you.
Thank you, Naresh. What a blessing. For those who might be wondering what seminar we're talking about, we'll let you know a bit more about it. For those, there's always opportunity for those who feel like out of the information, if it's helpful, that Matthew and Naresh and myself are given of our time to have a workshop, a 4-week workshop in October. And we'll let you know about that shortly and see if you're interested to be part of that. But obviously what we want to cover today is just how do we build better wealth habits. And I love what Naresh has shared. Most people don't share this. A lot of people just, when I've gone into learning how to create wealth, they teach you about all the great things you can do in creating, but not how to keep. One of the biggest lessons I learned was reading a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Anyone read that book? If you haven't, you should. I read it over 20 something years ago, and it literally transformed my thinking. I had just started working for about 2 years, and then I decided I'm going to stop working because I don't want to be in the rat race. And some of you saw my little girl come up onto my lap right now, but she's the 9th of my children. And I when my first child was her age and I missed out on her taking her first steps, I made a decision I wasn't going to do that anymore. But Robert Kiyosaki says an interesting thing. He says he became a millionaire 3 times. He lost his money twice. And he learned this lesson that Naresh is teaching that I don't hear many teach. He said it's not about making millions, it's about learning how to keep them and steward it well. And so you can make money. That's actually not a hard thing to do once you're disciplined in understanding the platforms in which you can do it. But the problem is if you don't know how to keep it and steward it well, then you lose it. So residue income is such an important thing, and I hope that's helped some of you. I'm going to go into my presentation, and then we'll open up to a few questions. Matthew will join us soon, and he'll do his third presentation. So I'm just going to share my screen. And if there are any questions, please feel free to jump on, to write in the chat group. Others, we will have some question time just after I finish my presentation. Once again, I really appreciate the time everyone has taken. For some of you, it's early morning, like in Malaysia. For some of you, it is past midnight, like our brother in England. And some of you is just in a nice spot. It's either mid-morning or evening. So welcome to each one of you, and thank you for being part of this. You know, when COVID hit us, beginning of the year, around about March, April, I was in LA flying back, and Papa Luke, one of our implementers in our church, said this. He said it's not the end of the world. It's a reset time. A lot of people felt it was the end of the world. What's happening? What's taking place? And there was a lot of fear that was moving around. And one of the things that we began to look at prophetically was that it's actually a reset time. A lot of people talked about 2020 being a year of revisioning. Obviously, we didn't expect it to be in this way. But you know what? God was not taken by surprise. How many of you know that? He knows all things. He lives outside of our time. He's not governed by our time. And he knows everything. So it's a time of reset. And it has been. It's been a really awesome time for us. In the last few months, we've gone through some time of fasting and prayer, and we felt prophetically where God was taking us, moving us in, was learning how to move from the promised land. And I just want to encourage you that if you want to know, there's a 5-part series that I've done on YouTube, worth looking at, because it's looking at from the inside out. What's the treasure within you that God has placed within you that you can start to put out? And so that's something that might be worth looking at for the rest of this year as we begin 2021. We're excited. It's been just an amazing time in 2020 for Naresh, myself, for Matthew, for a few others, where COVID hasn't affected us in a negative way. It has actually built resilience in us and actually it has actually tested out our true principles. I think Naresh would agree with that. You know, and I know Matthew called me about a month into COVID, and he said, I'm really angry, especially with our Christian community, because so many of them have no savings, they've got no investments, they've got nothing, and they're in a real mess. And he said, why is that? Because it's not scriptural. And for anyone who thinks, oh, this sounds like a prosperity gospel, in a sense it is, but the true prosperity gospel. I'm not interested in the false one that says make money for yourself. But one day, I don't like speaking on money. I'm all for souls getting saved, for people knowing about the kingdom of God. That's my personal journey. But you know what? Sometimes God calls you to steward the stuff that you think it'll be controversial if I talk about it. And one day I was speaking on wealth, and I said, God, I don't want to be a prosperity preacher. And then he said to me, I'm either the God of poverty or the God of prosperity. You choose. I said, well, there is no choice in that. You're the God of prosperity. He said, well, just that because people have misused that term does not mean that it's not a truth that we need to walk in. And Matthew was really upset. And you know, it's what Naresh said. We've been given talents, and are we stewarding it well? And I want to encourage you guys that COVID is not the last frontier. We're going to have other COVID type situations. And it's not about the pandemic of a disease, because we're going to get immunity around it. We've already seen that prophetically. We've already seen people's lives, the number of deaths versus the number of those getting through. But what's more important, I'm saying this not to try and make a political point or anything else. What's more important is the economic crisis we've come to. And I'd like to suggest to you, and for those of you who know me can attest to this, and I've got a few people here, including my own sister, who can attest to this. We've not struggled through this. And there are 3 words I want to leave with you to think about. And one is about learning to not strive through things, but when you get to this position where there's a situation, is learning to adapt. So you overcome, you adapt, and then you start to thrive. Okay, and we want to show you in this time how we do that, how we've done that through our stories. These are not past things, these are just current things we're going through. We're producing more income, we're helping more people, we have more in our savings account. And we're not saying this because we are better than you, we're just saying this because we've got some truths that we've been already putting into place, firm foundations that have helped us, and it's growing. So John 1:2 says, Beloved, I wish above all else, above all things, that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers. It's interesting, it doesn't say even as your spirit prospers, because our spirit is perfect in Christ when we've received him. It says to the level of your soul. You will grow to the level of your soul. You will prosper to the level that your soul is prospering. What is your soul? Your mind, your thinking, and your emotions. How you judge your environment is made up, which is this thing in your mind. How you make decisions. So let me put it to you this way: you can only prosper to the level of the health of your mind. How healthy is your mind? And this is partly why we're doing this seminar, is to change that thinking. Do you have weak thinking, or do you have well thinking? I'm asking you questions that may sound confrontational, but it's just there to kind of bring to you a jarring that you can start to adapt to a situation, rather than saying, I can't wait till COVID is over. I can't wait till my circumstances change. Well, you know the description of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Right? We want to change those things. There's a book I put out in January. Some of you have got it and reading it, and I recommend it highly. Better Than the Tides. I don't recommend it because I wrote it. I actually said to the Lord, I don't want to be a high-profile person. I'd like to be a low-profile, high-impact person, because it's hard being a high-profile person. And there's stuff in there that I can't find anywhere else that's on Better Than the Tides. It's information that begins to teach us how we can be blessed beyond feeling that if we give 10%, we get blessed, and if we don't give, we get cursed. Jesus gave himself 100% to us, right? Why would I not do the same? So we're given finances to steward well. In the book, I talk about Genesis 26, verses 1 and 12 to 13, a very interesting story about a man called Isaac, whose father is Abraham. And Isaac is in a place of drought, which is that broke, the red square. And it's a place where it says, I don't have enough to pay for my basic needs. He's getting ready to move. And God comes to him and says, stay where you are. I'll be with you and I'll bless you. Doesn't give him any conditions around it. It says, stay where you are. I'll be with you and I'll bless you. Sow in the land that I show you. And he says why he's blessing him. He says, because of my covenant with your father Abraham. Why is it significant to us? And I write this in the book in more detail. There's not much time I can cover it here, but it's significant to us because we are children of Abraham through faith in Jesus. We have the same blessing. It's not because of what we do that God blesses us. It's because of who we are. When I receive Christ into my life, I've changed my identity. And now I have access to the blessings of Abraham. And so it says that Isaac took that promise. Remember we said about at the beginning, a wise man builds his house upon the rock. So Isaac took the words of God, and it says he sowed in that land and he produced 100-fold in that same year. That's powerful. In a land of drought, how much more in a land of prosperous? Thanks. And then it says and this is what I love in verse 12, it's 13, it says he began to prosper, continued to prosper, and is very prosperous indeed. And I'm putting to you that as we have started this journey over the last few years, I've seen God take me through this where a lot of Christians, and I was one of these, was stuck in the breakthrough flow cycle. And I was never getting a permanent breakthrough. But I look at the life of Isaac and I see that once you get a breakthrough, it began to prosper. You don't continue to prosper and then start again, right? You just continue and you become very prosperous. And that's a journey where you've got to have a permanent breakthrough, which is a mindset change and an understanding. And I love what Naresh brings, and Matthew and myself, we bring this balance of three aspects of how do you keep your residual income, how do you invest it, and how do you start to produce as an entrepreneur. And I'm putting this to you, and for some of you this might be new, for some of you this might be, I've heard this, but I need to know, I want to put legs on this. And so we start with having a permanent breakthrough, which is having enough for our basic needs, moving to flow. And in flow, there's a section from 1 to 10 on where are you in flow. And a lot of people, when they have jobs, say that they are around the flow. They have a bit more than enough. They have an enjoyable life. They go on holidays. They look after themselves, etc. They give. And then I say to them, can your income produce without you? Take yourself out of the equation. And they're back to broke. Can I suggest to you that Matthew, Naresh, and myself are able to be in flow, moving to overflow, regardless of our work? And that you could do the same. We choose to work because we want to. And so we want to just talk about that, how that works. I can't wait to get to overflow. Haven't been there yet, but I can't wait to. Why? Because we've recognized something, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've traveled around the nations preaching the word and also helping others financially. And what I've discovered in every single nation, no matter where people are, is that within $100,000 to $200,000 a year is more than enough to live comfortably in flow. If anyone would disagree with me, please feel free to type in the message and say, no, you need more. Now, why this is exciting to me is that I have a plan, and I teach people this on how you can start to create, without capital, business, or how you can start to do investments, which is Matthew's side, and how you can even keep your earned income to a position where you can cap off an income of $100,000 to $200,000 a year. Now, why this is great is that if we can learn to steward that well, as Naresh gave us that scripture earlier, be faithful in the little things, is anything above and beyond that you can give away. What would it look like if you can be learning to steward $1 million a year? You only need 100 to 200 to live off. You're giving away 80 to 90% of your money. Who thinks that's a great idea? If you do type a Y into the chat group, I think it's a brilliant thing, but it's a practical brilliant thing. Because many people say, I'll give more as I get more. And I'm saying, well, hang on, get a cap off at some point, and then anything above that is stewarding well. Okay, and I think it's very practical, and we're starting to live that. So here's my question I just mentioned before, and I want you to really think hard about this, because often we limit God. Psalm 78 says that they limited the Holy One of Israel from unbelief. We limit God to thinking that the only way we can earn income is by earned income. Now, when Matthew presents, he'll tell you about the 7 ways you can earn income, and earned income is only one of those ways. Can my income produce without me? Can my income produce without me? That's a question I want to really put into you and ask you to think about. Because if it can, then what can you do and steward well for the things that God has called you to do? And let's be clear on when I say things God has called you to do. I don't separate spiritual from natural. As Naresh said, if your garden is to be a dentist, then don't toil in there, tend it. But you have a choice to go to your dentistry tomorrow. If your garden is to be a teacher, then tend it. But you have a choice now when you look at the question, can my income produce without me? And choice is a powerful thing. Here are just some examples of investing, income producing without me. 23rd of March, 2020. These are real life examples. One of our investments returned a net return of 3.34%. Multiply that 10 times in a year, it's every 5 weeks, and that these trades close. And that's a good 33% return on my capital. That's pretty good. Here's another one in April. This is during COVID time. This is at the peak, starting to peak, when economies were starting to collapse, stock was starting to collapse. We got funds distributed in our funds at 3.9, 6.9, and 5.8. And you multiply that by 10, and you'll see what sort of percentage returns we're getting. And by the way, I don't even consider percentage returns as important anymore, because everything God has created is to multiply. But this is the bare minimum. Remember, God said to the unjust servant, you could have at least put it in the bank to get some interest. Well, the bank doesn't give me more than 2% a year. I'm getting that in a cycle and more. Here's another one. In May, 3, 4, and 3% returns. Here's profits that were made between April and May from the traders that we invest in, 1.2 million. And people say you can't make money in a downturn market. It's not true. You can, you just have to know where to look. We call these high risks, but they're low risks. They're low risks in the high risk category because we do our due diligence with them. As I said, I have 9 children. I have a lot of responsibilities, so I don't gamble. But I do take risks. They're calculated risks. Here's what's excited me. In 18 months, I have managed to double my capital just this month. Take away all the risk. Why? Because I put capital in, doubled it through this one particular opportunity. I can pull out my capital and there's no risk anymore. And I can keep creating. And I've managed to create a little passive income. It's very little, 2,000 a month. It works without me. About 36,000 Aussie dollars. If I've done it in 18 months, what can I do in another 18 months? Probably in shorter time because I've learned the principle. I can replace my income in about 3 years' time. Is that interesting to anyone else? And I'm giving you some practical examples that this is how these are things we can do. And if anyone's interested, you can chat later about it. So people ask me this question: 7 rights and responsibilities to create wealth. They ask me, what does God say about money? Because some people have a misguided view that that money is evil, and I say no, the love of money is evil. You can either chase money or have money chase you, and both are wrong, or you can make money your servant and let it serve you for the purposes of kingdom. So I want to give you a quick biblical overview from what has helped me in my journey. Number 1, it is your God-given right and responsibility to create wealth. Deuteronomy 8:18. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to create wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which we swore to your fathers as it is this day. So it is your God-given right and responsibility. They call it a royal right. Remember I told you we're sons of Abraham. And also the Bible says in Galatians 4:7, we're sons of God. We're no longer slaves. We're sons of God and joint heirs with Christ. So you have a kingdom responsibility and a right. Number 2, it is your God-given right and responsibility to live debt-free. Romans 13:8. This really affected my life. About 10 years ago, I went through one of the worst financial crisis in my life. I was going well. I was looking to retire at the age of 30. I had properties that I bought from the time I was 20 years of age. I was quite the entrepreneur, and I had a plan to retire into financial freedom. Note the word financial freedom. And then all of a sudden, my world came falling down, and all my finances got cut off. Things happened that were not. Some of them were not my fault. Some of them were. And so you got to take responsibility for everything that happens. Stuff happens in life. I didn't have any contingency plans. I had 5 children at the time, and they were taken from me. My marriage at that time dissolved, and it hit me from behind. Didn't see it happen, and it really affected my life. I felt frustrated, felt lost. I was past 30 years of age, and I hadn't met that financial freedom goal. I was in minus $200,000 of debt, taken through courts and with my marriage, had things told about me that were not true, and it was a wreck. I thank God for someone like Naresh who walked with me through those times. And every time I had a bill that I was owing, I would just have to put my hand over it and say, Father, I owe no one anything but a debt of love. I began to use the word of God as a promise, and I kept on going with what I had. And I said, you can give me anything, investments, you can give me business, you can give me work to do, whatever it is, but I don't want to owe anyone anything but a debt of love. And it's amazing how one after the other over the last 10 years, God has cleared my debts. in different ways and then taken me to that position of breakthrough into flow. I want to encourage you, it's possible to do the same. It's not by what I did, it's but by who I believed in and the promises of God. Number 3, it is not your right and your God-given right and responsibility to, it is your God-given right and responsibility, to not be poor. Now, that was a fascinating promise that I didn't realize was in the scriptures until I read it in Deuteronomy 15:4. There shall be no poor among you. It seemed to contradict what Jesus said, where there'll always be the poor among you. And then I began to understand the context of it. Jesus was talking about everyone in the world. There'll always be poor people in the world. But Deuteronomy 15:4, the word says, basically within the children of God, there shall be no poor among you. So in other words, you can come into God's family poor, but you can't remain poor. And when I heard that, I wasn't as silent as you guys. I was like, amen. Wow, that is exciting. What's the principles? What do I need to do? Because I don't want to remain poor. Why? Because it's a distraction. It's a distraction that stops me from the things I need to do. Number 4, it is your God-given right and responsibility to lend and not borrow. How exciting to be able to lend. Deuteronomy 15:6, the Lord your God will bless you as he has promised. You will lend money to many nations, but you will never need to borrow. You will rule many nations, but they will not rule over you. Wow, that's so exciting. Number 5, it is your God-given right and responsibility to be a good steward of money. Naresh spoke the scripture before. Do you know that how we deal with money is a test from heaven? It says it here in the scriptures. If you're untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? So if you want to live out your purpose, start being trustworthy with worldly wealth. Don't run from it. Don't embrace it where it overwhelms you and takes up your whole life. But make it your steward. It's a good servant. It's a terrible master. Number 6, it is your God-given right and responsibility to help the widow, orphans, fatherless, and the needy. James 1:27, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for the orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. That's another powerful promise. We have the privilege of being able to help many. I feel it's not enough. I feel we've got to expand more, but we've been able to help a significant number of people in around the world, including first world countries too. In Australia, we have a fourth world country in our first world country. When I travel to our third world countries and they're complaining, I say, look, just give a little bit of thought for us and pray for us, because we've got a fourth world country that we need to sort out and help. But it's exciting to be able to help the helpless, but also help them become self-sufficient and God-dependent and start doing the same. How exciting is that? Multiplication. Finally, number 7, looking at some scriptures of why God wants you to be rich, wealthy. It's your God-given responsibility, right and responsibility to be time-free, resourced, and available to fulfill the Great Commission. 2 Corinthians 5:18-20. We've all been given the gift of reconciling man to God. We've all been given that ministry because God has given us a gift. And that was himself. Now, how do I get time free to do that? Many people wait till retirement to do what they feel God has called them to do. And that is not how God designed us to be. The working 9 to 5 for 35 years of the best part of your life is not how God designed you to be. Work was never in God's equation as the central focus of how you spend a third to half your day. Tending the garden is, and working hard in the rest of God is. So I get to work every morning on my investments, and I spend a few hours on that, and then I go about doing the other stuff that I need to do, which is exciting. And as Matthew will share, he says investing is quite boring. Why? Because it's just stuff we do. I mean, I think it's exciting because I get to learn more, and I just had a meeting with him. And you think 2,000 residual income is great, and I had a meeting with him and one of our leaders who was like that 40,000, 100,000 a month is their residual income, and I'm like, teach me. Why? Because if I could go back to my younger self and say some of this stuff, I'll get rid of the distractions. I'm not about money. Please don't get me wrong. For those who know me, I live a very contented life. And all of us do. We don't buy brand new cars. We buy cars that are a few years old. Why? Still look good. but we give away most of what we have because we know that the more we can steward, the more we can help others. We want to be part of the solution to this world's problems, not part of the problem. And we don't need the governments and economies to help us. We want to be ones who help. So here's the 7 again, and I want to give you a little exercise right now. I appreciate that you guys have been looking at this. Would you just write down on the chat group which number between 1 to 7 kind of speaks to you? It could be more than one of the numbers, but what's something that really speaks to your heart, challenges you a little bit? You feel like the Holy Spirit is kind of like challenging you a little bit. God's kind of going, yeah, that's something that I really sense and I want to see happening in my life. I want to celebrate it. Would you put that number down? Thank you. For some of you, it's 7. A lot of you, it's 7. And that's great. What about for others? What's really challenging you and saying, hey, if I can see this taking place, that'll be really great. For me, at one stage, it was paying off my debt. Now it's number 7 as well. And I'm getting to live 7, guys. And this is just to encourage you that you can do the same. And I'd love to take you on that journey. Some of you 4 and 5, thank you. Helping others, learning to steward resources well. Wonderful. And why I get people to do this and write this down is because you're actually, when you type in and say this has really been something that is challenging me in a good way to work towards, you're actually prophesying over yourself, because how many of you know life and death come from our mouth? God has given us that power, creative power. I love Pastor Ivy, 1 to 7. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So here's my question. Can my income produce without me? The answer for me is yes. But is it the answer for you? Can you go from broke to breakthrough into flow without your income? That you make a choice to have earned income only because you want to go there, but not because you have to. Thank you for some of those who've put, Phoebe and John. Thank you. So here are a few of my wealth steps that I did that I hope would help others. It's 9 steps. Number 1, I changed my mind towards wealth, and some of you might need to, on this seminar, just change your mind towards wealth. Because as a man thinks, so he is. Start with faith if you have nothing. I faithed it till I made it. I didn't fake it, I faithed it. I use faith because faith is the substance of things not seen, the evidence of things hoped for. And it's a powerful aspect. I created a plan to produce income without capital. I'll show you how if you're interested, how you can create income without capital. Use your capital to invest in a mentor. If you do have capital, invest in a mentor. Far cheaper to learn from mentors than to learn from experience. I've started so many businesses. I've failed in many, but then I've succeeded in many, and I've found the truth of it. And now any business I start flourishes. 5, make money, produce money. I love this one. I love my money having babies. By investing a portion of your savings in high-risk categories that are low risk, a portion. Right? The richest man in the world, richest man in Babylon. If you've ever not had a chance to read the book, read it, by George Carlson. Make thy coins have coins. Make thy purse pregnant. And it's just an exciting position, because it's a God position of everything should multiply, including our wealth, as long as you've got the perspective of why. Number 6, buy positive cash flow properties. If you're in Australia, a lot of people have been conned into buying negative cash flow properties. Say one day, keep paying it off, and one day it'll pay for you. No, it doesn't work that way. I've been buying property since I was 20 years of age. At my 21st birthday, I had my first property and my first car. Naresh will remember my red Mondeo, my Ford Mondeo. It was a far accelerated, high, better opportunity than my old Datsun 120Y that used to come around, souped up, had caught on fire one day because my wirings of my boosted sound system was wrongly wired. But, and I bought it brand new, and I've learned since then you don't buy brand new cars. You don't need to. Because but buy positive cash flow properties. I can tell you that from experience of buying and losing and making losses and making gains. Buy your house, make your house pay for its own mortgage. I'm doing that right now. Didn't want to ever have a mortgage again. Didn't think I could ever own a house again after the plummet I went through and the situation I went through 10 years ago. And I was content not to. But God then asked me to steward something that is very exciting, and just learning from Naresh how to pay my home loan off in I want to pay it off in a few years' time. I don't want to get to 30 years. I don't want the bank to have 5 times more money than I paid for my house that I could have given to someone, that I could have helped others who are starving or in need. Our family has learned to steward well. Give and sow. You can't stop giving and sowing. Move into wealth creation that produces double, 5, 10, 30, 60, 100-fold. That in itself is a gold. Is just gold if you'd get that and understand that, because I was always looking at percentages. What's the best percentage return? That's your most minimal. Now I look at any money I put, it needs to produce minimum double. It's from the scriptures. I don't have time to share all of that, but it just gives you an idea to just see some of the mindsets in which we travel in. Build with the mind to give away 80 to 90% of your income and live on 10 to 20, which is more than enough. If you think that's not possible, go and do some research on Colgate. John Colgate did that. Why do I do this? The value of a soul that none should perish. This was actually last year, almost a year, on the dot, a year from now. Matthew was just speaking at this summit online before he jumped on. I was physically there last year in Sydney, speaking at a summit, and this we met this beautiful lady, comes from a Chinese background. It was a Christian summit. We thought everyone was a believer there, and we found out while having dinner the night before the seminar that she wasn't. Came from a Buddhist background. She was looking very sickly. I mean, what you see her in that picture is she's much. This is an after picture, let me put it that way. And so just sitting and chatting with her, and she looked at me and she said, "You have this. You're always smiling, and you have this energy around you." And I said, "I have the greatest energy. Can I pass you some?" She got to learn to talk in the language that others understand. And so I held her hand, and in 20 minutes of just conversation over a dinner table, she just brightened up. This is what she looked like. And within 45 minutes, had given her heart to Jesus. Why? Because we weren't talking religion, we were talking kingdom. Kingdom that makes change. Kingdom that helps people. I didn't ask her to get rid of her religion. I just asked her to come to Jesus. He'll sort the rest out. And he does. We disciple those that we bring to the Lord. The next day, I was in this seminar. That's my son Ezra, my daughter Esther. They were 12 and 14 at the time. And Wendy introduces me to this beautiful lady who comes from a Muslim background. This is in Sydney, Australia, and we're chatting to her. And rather than going into the seminar and chatting, I spent an hour and a half with her, just telling her about how we are also followers of Nabi Isa. Got to understand from the Quran that we're followers of Christ. And who he is and what he does. And in an hour and a half, she'd given her heart to Jesus. How awesome. The value of a soul that none should perish, guys. This is why we do what we do. This is why we get rid of the money distractions, so we can do what God has called us to do. And you might have a different way you want to do things, but usually the money is what stops us. 31st night, we're out telling people about Jesus. This 31st night a few years ago, we saw about 420 people come to the Lord in Melbourne City. And it was just such a beautiful blessing. That little girl you saw before came and said, sat on my lap, Heavenly, was just a little chubabub. That was a couple of years ago. We often go out to, before COVID hit us, to the skate park and just love on people. That's my beautiful wife. She's from Kenya, Gertrude. And it's great having her sister on today. And that's one of my sons, Josiah. And this is part of our team that goes out and just loves on people. A few years ago, and this is one of the stories that really touches my heart every time, I got a call from Canada that my uncle, my dad's best friend, growing up, was dying in an old people's home. He was not going to make it more than a few days. He'd fallen. And his daughter asked me, she said he's a staunch Hindu. And let me be clear, I'm not against religion, because Christianity is just as bad a religion as everyone else's. I'm for Christ, because I see the hope of life in Jesus did not bring religion. He brought himself. And I'm a lover of that. And I do not, I do not compromise on that belief. And this is the reason why I build wealth. So I went to see him, took a flight. The ability for wealth, just to be able to take a flight. Spoke to my mom and my sister and my wife. They said, yeah, please go. 24 hours to get to Canada through US. And jumped off. By the way, I've learned to beat jet lag as well. Kingdom principles, really exciting. And spoke with him, had to convince him who I was because he hadn't seen me for over 30 years. And he was somebody who would not accept the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I got to speak with him. I came back 2 days later. I spoke to him again. I did not speak to him about religion. I just spoke to him about Jesus, about life. He gave his heart to the Lord after 80 something years. That's a picture taken 2 days later, same angle, same weather outside. Can you see the difference of what Jesus makes? The value of a soul that none should perish. I'm just trying to tell you why I do what I do. You might have a different reason, and that's fine. This is why I do what I do and why I need to free up my time to do this, because that's what God's called me to do from the day I was born. These are some women in women's prison in Kenya that we were able to help them and really touch their hearts with this message. This is some singing. This was last year. Sorry, I should have warned you that I was going to play a little clip. I hope it didn't take you by surprise. We were able to help them just recently with sanitary pads. The whole of Kenya prisons have opened up as an opportunity for us because we know we get to minister with the one in charge of the prisons. My sister in love is down here, Bridget, and she's on today as well. So, and she was there and she can testify. What a blessing. This is why we do what we do. These are my 3 steps I live by in creating wealth. Make money from nothing, make money, and make your investments multiplied 2-fold. 5, 10, 30, 60, and 100-fold. I want to finish off just in 5 minutes with telling you how to create business with little or no capital in 5 highly effective steps. Is anyone interested in that? Would that help anyone today? Because it's worked for me over and over again. It's like creating money from nothing. People say, "Is it money doesn't grow on trees? You can't create money from nothing." Yes, you can. I've done it over and over again. It's possible to do. Here are the 5 steps. This is what I teach when people come for my coaching programs. This is what I teach when people need to know on the journey that they need to walk on. These are the 5 steps I teach. You're welcome to take a picture of this. This is my secret that I deep dive into. And if anyone wants to come on the workshop with us, wants to go further with us on the journey, because we're seeing changes in people. We're seeing actually fruit where people are actually producing their own income, and it's really exciting. These are the 5 steps I've used. I've been doing business for over 25 years now, and I started with mowing lawns, but I just created a system. It works. And I didn't even use my own lawnmower. I went and asked the neighbor for his lawnmower. I was 14 years of age. Mom said, "Go do something with yourself." I said, "What?" She goes, "Go mow the lawn." I said, "I don't have a lawnmower." She goes, "Go ask the neighbor." I said, "Okay." When I asked the neighbor, he said yes. He wasn't happy that I went and took over some of his gardens and got paid for it. So that stopped quite quickly. But I learned something. You can start without anything. And I've gone from there into, back about, 20 years ago. I set up a business called Student Care Australia. I had no income at the time, just lost a lucrative job at the bank, got 3 children at that time, got an idea, started without capital, generated $200 profit on my first house, where I was getting houses and giving them out to students around the university. I started breaking the room, doing it room by room, fully furnished rooms. By the time I had, first year I had 7 houses. By the second, third year, I was starting to make about $30,000 to $40,000 a month. Is that good income? Yeah. What did I start with? Nothing. It works. I started another business called Future Tech Business Solutions, using my career. I come from an engineering background, a programming background, robotics engineer. I was poor at programming, but I was great at analysis. So I created what we call a bridge connector model. And so I got a programmer who did the work for me. I would do the upfront stuff. I would get 50%. He would make 50%. People initially said to me, "That's silly because you're only making 50% of the income." I said, "It's great maths because I get to do 5 projects at the same time and make 250%. You guys getting this? Am I too fast? All right. Does it make sense? So we start to strategize, what we call leverage. And I wasn't as good a programmer. My programmer was brilliant. I had 2 major universities that did 10 years did work with me. Okay. Why do I share these testimonies? Because we overcome the devil by the blood of the Lamb. the word of our testimony. Here's one of my favorites. Everyone's my favorite, but here's one of my favorites. Ryan is ex-kickboxing Victorian champion. I write about him in my book. He was broke when I met him in 2014. He was selling his stuff, personal stuff, just to pay for the rent of his room. We got an idea. He knew how to do concreting, so we worked on his concreting business and built it up. Within 6 months, he was out of debt. How awesome is that? He went from nothing to out of debt. Within 12 months, he had 10K surplus. I remember him calling me one day saying, "I've got $10,000. What do I do with it?" I said, "Oh wow, what a great problem to solve." He's now moved into coaching. He came with me to Africa last year, and not only paid for himself but helped pay for someone else, and blessed others there. My beautiful sister who's on today, same mother, same father. She started the cake business. She's a microbiologist, a mom. She's a missionary. She 4 children, homeschooled them. Was a missionary in Sri Lanka for about 7 years. Grew up in Australia like me. She converted a hobby into a business without capital. Took the business international, not last year, the year before, and doubled her income. And now she's moving towards coaching and coaching others. How exciting. We started all of this without capital. It's possible. We train people over and over again. Padre Bruce, he's an Anglican priest, don't hold it against him. Low wage. When Matthew and I met him, we're having a giggle because he would look at us and listen to Matthew and I and go, what are you on about? He's the biggest skeptic you could meet, one I've met so far. And then started to get what we were doing. So far, he's completed a book on sonship. He's bought property, sold property. He's in the investments game like us in the Forex. He's got this cross that he's converted into business. Brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. Can't stop the guy now. When we meet together as implementers and have a coffee over Zoom, we just have to wait half an hour to listen to what he's just been up to for the last 3 weeks, because it's just brilliant. So these are the steps. Choose your product, research, add value, market, understand that marketing is education, and sales will follow if you educate people, and customer service. It's simple, but it's deep. And I take this journey with people who want to start to produce income from nothing, because that's what I've been doing over and over again. Here are the 4 ways as I finish off on how you turn a hobby into a business idea. Number 1, how you set up business without capital, turn it into $100,000 to $200,000 a year. And you take note of this. Number 1, turn a hobby into a business idea. That's what I did. That's what my sister did, Took a hobby, cakes, turned it into a business idea. Number 2, solve a problem to a niche group. That's what I did. I took a situation with the student accommodation and solved a problem to a niche group of international students who were coming in from certain countries. I chose 3 countries that kind of worked well with me, and I solved the problem. Number 3, change your career into a business. I changed my career. I was a robotics engineer, programmer, project manager, and I used that and changed that into a business idea and produced more with less of my time. Number 4, and I love this. This is what I do right now. This is my gold. And I want to prophetically tell you, if you're interested in coaching, it's a brilliant way to transform people in COVID time. The treasure within you to transform others through coaching. We're seeing more and more people who are just jumping on, needing help, because they want to see the future in a better position. I want you to remember that money has not left this planet. It's circulating somewhere. And I always say it's in someone's pocket, under somebody's pillow, or in someone's bank account. How do you get it into your bank account, under your pillow, or into your pocket? And as Matthew said, or I think Naresh said, inflation, it's no use putting money under your pillow, because as it grows, its value grows less. So I've changed my mind of putting money in my pillow. I don't have money in my pillow. Please don't come and try and look for it in my home. I hope this has helped give you some perspective on something beyond yourself in understanding how God has purposed wealth for you. I hope you understand that we're excited about this sort of thing, and I'm really excited about just that journey and being able to journey with each one that God puts in our path, because we want to see, starting with the believers, we want to see that increase in great value. And as ministers, for those, some of you here that are ministers, and we really want to say, wonderful, thank you for jumping on as well. As pastors and ministers, we don't ask our church for money. We get to travel around the world. We get to teach our church how to produce. It's so exciting. Wherever we go, as Naresh said, we don't ask, we give. Even in our local church here, when the church got shut down physically, we did not get shut down. We started to expand. Matthew and myself and a couple of others, we're online church twice a week. We've got other platforms of prayer, and those who jump on know that we never ask for money. We teach people how to produce. We can't stop. Like we're coming to a point where at the moment we're saying, hey, we don't need to ask for more because there's enough coming in. Because even our Project 61 charitable organization is learning to produce its own income. I had a beautiful conversation with Matthew the other day and said, hey, we've got some surplus in there until we have our next project. Can we put it into the Forex and produce 30% income? He goes, yeah, why not? It's producing for itself. Isn't that good? Yeah. It's excellent time. So I'm going to stop here for a few minutes. I'm going to pass it on to Matthew, and then I'll come back afterwards and tell you about the workshop that we have, if those are interested. And there's some questions. Love to take questions after that. Matthew, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you, guys. Sorry, I'm a bit late because the other conference ran late. But anyway, we are flexible. We know how to just shift things around dynamically and to be able to present what we. Let me share my screen. Okay. Once again, welcome for those who are here. I can see some familiar faces. Thank you, Pastor Ivy, David. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And as usual, typically what happened, you saw this morning, Naresh was talking about maximizing a residue, and Ruben talks more about how to multiply with passive income through business or business initiatives. My goal here is really to see from the residue that you have from what Naresh was talking about, how do you multiply the residue to be able to create wealth. So this is why we have three distinct speakers here. One talks about maximizing residue. I talk about using that residue to multiply, and Ruben talks about what are the other sources of income that you can generate while without you sacrificing your time, precious time that you have by multiplying time. Thank you, guys. So let me just go straight into this. My first statement is, I always, you can be young without money, but you can't be old without it. Tennessee Williams said, he was a playwright and in the US, but it is so true. When we are so young, we enjoy life. Modern trend is children, kids, the moment they get their credit card, the moment they're working first job, they spend, they maximize their cards. Look, we all have been through that. When I was young, I was, after my graduation in UK, I was working in UK. It was like a paradise. We're living there, enjoying life, and it was just like there's no tomorrow until it's too late for you to discover that yesterday should have been the opportunity, not tomorrow. And so this is why God wants us to be good stewards. I think Naresh would have talked about it this morning about stewardship. So that's why I'm not addressing that today. I'm going straight into the crux of the matter. This is typically in Australia. If you're living in Australia, typically in retirement, assuming you already have a house paid for, these are the net income you need to live on. If you're a couple, you need to at least $50,000 to $65,000 a year, tax-free. The government will give you something up to about $25,000 to $30,000 as a part of the pension if you don't have any savings. But that's not going to help you far. It's not going to give you opportunity to live that. You're going to live in what I call a poverty lifestyle, because it's just, what I'm trying to say is that one of the things we talk about is inflation, because if inflation today, income, salary increases by about 2-3% a year. But if you look at all your bills, utility bills, rates, whatever, they always increase by at least 5%. So your cost is already exceeding your income. And now you add inflation to that, you're going even far further down. So you need to increase your return on investment to overcome all these and things that are going to eat into your income. So this is just an example in Australia. And in US, you need at least about the same in US dollars to live on. And in Hawaii, if you're living in Hawaii, you need about $110,000 tax-free. because different states have got different prices, cost of living. So a survey was done recently in the US. They said to retire, they need $1.7 million to live. Bearing in mind, remember, even if you retire at 65, you're going to live for another 30 years nowadays, modern lifestyle, right? So you need to, the secret is maximizing your, how do you retain your capital and live off the profits so that you can constantly live without having stress on your income or your savings. So what I'm trying to say is money should be like an ATM. An ATM is a bank where the bank doesn't own the money, it's your money. So you can pull out the money whenever you want. Okay. So it should be like an ATM. That's how our lifestyle should be. That's what wealth creation is all about. But having said that, money can only be generated from wealth. Wealth and money is two different things, right? Wealth is where you use wealth to generate money for your living. So wealth is given to you by God. Land, gold, silver, all these things are treated as wealth. Money is worldly system is created by on earth as a means of exchange. So you buy and sell, right? So it's not about money, it's about creating wealth. Wealth is the one that gives you the liquidity to be able to live the lifestyle that you want. So you need to have something at the back of the ATM that's constantly replenishing. As you use it, there is money, unlimited supply. That is, so the secret is, how do I build this so that I can pull out whenever I want, not only for my purpose, but also for me to be a blessing for whoever God wants me to bless. And everything comes from good stewardship, which Naresh talked about. I have a separate seminar on that about good stewardship on finances. And so this is what it is all about. And again, all this can be summarized in this diagram, what I call the secrets of the golden buckets. So the well is your income, right? It's your income, which is, and then your spending is your outflow, what Ramesh calls it, your outflow. And the key thing is, how do I balance my spending, my savings, my investing, and how do I leak the unnecessary expenses that comes through in my life? So the key thing is, you must minimize this, maximize these two. Why do we have two separate buckets? I'll talk about in a minute. Why you need savings and investing. They're two different things, right? And again, if you don't have enough income coming from the from the well, how do I generate multiple wells? Like what Ruben was talking about. Apart from your salary, what else can I do that can give me the multiplication that will help me to feel, but I'm constant with my spending, but now I'm in a position to put more into these two buckets. So that's the blueprint. And we were talking, when you go into the course itself, the training, we will teach you about the blueprint. This is the blueprint that I talk about, that is, about wealth creation. So let's talk about financial breakthrough is about creating a wealth mindset. It's a habit that needs to be developed. Nobody is born with a wealth mindset. It is got to be developed. It's got to be, over time. And of course, certain children are blessed because their parents are savvy. They teach them how about wealth creation, how to be stewards. But most of us, like, when I'm growing up, my parents were, they had no clue about financial management. They had no stewardship. They never thought about, because we're living in poverty. It's about hoarding whatever you can grab and use it as quickly as possible before it goes away. That's the kind of mindset we grew. So a lot of us, our parents don't teach us. So we learn the hard way. But of course, today, if you as a child, if you teach your children as early as possible, then obviously you're going to see much a blessing. And for example, like my children, I think we were fortunate enough to be able to sow into them at a very early age. And thank God today, I can see the blessings, the good stewardship that they have, and I have no worries about their finances, because I know they've been good stewards of what God's placed in their hands. So it's our responsibility. So in order to change, we need to change our identity. We cannot be living in a poverty mindset. We can't have a slave mindset, begging God for help. Our identity should be that we are children of God. We are Father in heaven has already made provision for us. So it's how we go, how we change our identity is the one that's going to make the difference in our life. And about our priority, Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first my kingdom and its righteousness, and I will add all things," not some things, all things to you. So if you change your identity to a son of God or a daughter of God, and you change your identity to trusting God for your provision, things will start changing. That means you automatically begin to be a good steward. You learn how to manage what God's put in your hands. God, your job is not the one that's going to give you the provision. As Ruben said earlier, the word job, J-O-B, means job just above broke. Just above broke. Job is only giving you enough not to go broke. But that's not where God wants you to be. That's why Matthew, again, Jesus talks about, I feed the birds. They don't work for it. Right? So we need to trust God and He will give us the provision. But we need to show that we are obedient, that we are good money managers, we're good stewards in everything we do. One of the things I say is God loves every human being. Whether you're a believer or not, it doesn't matter. But He doesn't trust everybody. So in order for God to trust you with the little you have, He can give you more. You need to learn how to be a good steward of the finances. You need to know your identity. You need to know your priority. Right? And then the outcome is God gives you the capacity. You are now able to multiply. And then you'll learn, God can give you, trust you more, and you become a bigger, better steward of it. And God is now able to trust you because He knows with whatever you have, you're not only taking care of your family, but you're also going to be putting blessing into the kingdom. And the more you sow, the more you reap. For me, there are two rules. Jesus talks about sowing and reaping, and also reaping from where you're not sown. So I love to be, I'm enjoying both. I'm reaping where I'm sowing. I'm also reaping from where I'm not sowing. That's how God wants us to be. So that's the kind of model that we need to go into. That's the kind of lifestyle that we need to have. And we're going to teach you all those things as part of the training. So what is the biggest risk in life, in wealth creation? Anybody's going to answer? Right? The biggest risk is not investing at all. If we invest zero, you get zero. Right? Zero multiplied by zero is zero. So if you don't invest, you say, oh, I'm scared, I'm frightened. If you're operating in fear, you're not going to get anywhere. God wants us to, there is every investment, there is some risk. But it's about every investment, it's about managing the risk, not about operating in fear. As you manage the risk, everything will fall into place. Right? So having the right set of beliefs, is most important. Most have fear-based beliefs about money because of the way we've been brought up, the way our education system talks of, our education system is the worst worldly system that changes, forces us to think, grooms us to go for jobs, not to be entrepreneurs, not to be creative. Right? And our parents sometimes influence, and the people that you mix with is also important. If you mix with the wrong people, they will pull you down. If you mix with the right people, they will pull you up. So iron sharpens iron. So this is why it's very important. One of the 4 principles that Warren Buffett talks about, it is the company that you keep. The company that you keep is the one that's going to end, because you're going to learn from them and you're going to grow faster. Right? So you be careful about the people that you mix with. When I was younger, when I was working, and true enough, the company that I kept was the wrong company. They wanted to socialize, they wanted to go to karaoke, they want to go drinking, pubs. This is their lifestyle, and you just follow along because it was peer pressure. You don't think about anything, and then you realize this is not what I'm meant to be. Right? So fear of failure, poverty mindsets, these are some of the problems that causes us to hold back and deprive us of what God wants us to be. There are some of the things that I teach through the home church that Ruben was talking about. One of the things I talk about is we don't be conformed to the natural law. The natural law of this world says it's time-based. That means I work morning, I get up in the morning, I work day, I come back home, then the next day is all controlled by time and days. But when you put spiritual law, God's law is spiritual law overrides natural law. God's law is the one that gives you multiplication. That's the one that gives you breakthrough. So if you apply God's law, you don't have to say, oh, I've got to wait for 30 years to pay my debts. God can make that mortgage disappear in 10 years or 5 years, because He's going to give you the wisdom and the knowledge how to do it. Right? God's kingdom is all about multiplication, not natural law. is conformed by the Satan and controlled by Satan, whereas God law, spiritual law, always overrules. So don't be time dependent. Don't worry about time. Always, if you apply spiritual law, things will move faster for your life. So ignorance of opportunity, there are hundreds and hundreds of opportunities out there every day that you can tap into, but people don't, they're so engrossed in what they're doing. As I say, because they're stuck in the natural law, they don't ask God for revelation. And God can give you opportunities that to create other sources of income. See, for me now, I am now learning the next level, the new thing that I'm doing now, because I've learned all these things I'll be teaching you, but I'm also constantly learning, because now I'm beginning to understand there are ways you can acquire businesses with zero capital. They can be profitable business, but you don't have to bring a single dollar out of your pocket, and you can still buy into those businesses. So I'm learning about it, how exciting that is, and I want to put that into practice. How if I can buy up multiple businesses and I don't have to put a single cent out of my pocket, and those businesses are profitable, and I can use them for kingdom purposes. There is more sources of income that we can use to bless the kingdom, right? So God can give you very creative ideas. When I went into business first time, I walked into the wrong company. I was unequally yoked. I struggled for 4 years. In the end, I had to walk away from the business because I was unequally yoked with people who are non-believers, right? And then there was just nothing. I just couldn't do anything. No breakthroughs in my life. I walked away, gave my shares free of charge, and walked away. And my wife was so relieved. She said, "Matthew, it's the best thing that you did." Right? I thought she's going to hammer me when I get home, right? But she said, "That's the best thing you did. I've been praying that you will do this one day, because she said, you've been so miserable." And then I was doing freelancing for 6 months, and then God put into me another business idea. And a pastor friend came to me and he said, "Matthew, God says you got a business idea. He wants you to do this business. And in 6 months, he's going to give you 4 major projects." This was in 1997 during recession. Banks, and this business was about selling software to business banks. And banks were cutting back, and we prayed about it. We invest. We did it, and true enough, in 6 months, God gave me 4 major projects from the banks, from almost zero capital to $10 million in 6 months, right? And again, it happened when I came to Australia in 2005. God again did another brilliant turnaround from zero to giving opportunities all over Asia. So you see, when we got to seek the Lord, and God will give you wisdom, give you knowledge, give you understanding. He's the one who gives us a provision. So don't be ignorant of opportunities. See, he said, "Ask and I shall give you, seek and you will find. Knock and I will open the doors for you." So we just don't do things in the flesh. Wealth creation is not about working in the flesh. It's about working in the spiritual realm, asking God to help us, to show us ways that we can build and multiply. So some of the common mistakes people make, buying expensive things that they can't afford. They try to live like the neighbors. And one of the worst things you can buy is buying a brand new. If you're an employee, you're not a business owner, why do you want to buy brand new cars in the first place? The moment you buy a car, you have a keys. You sit in the car, you have already lost 15 to 20% of the value of the car. Right? Buy 2 to 3 year old cars, the balance, the savings you have, you can invest. Right? Don't go into putting money into depreciating assets. For example, mobile phones, people buy every year. Why do you need to buy a mobile phone every year? This phone mine is 4 years old and it's still as good as new. Most of us don't use more than 20% of the features. Right? Depreciating assets, spend less. Appreciating asset, invest more. Paying paycheck to paycheck, because people don't understand about savings, the principle of saving. They just leave paycheck to paycheck. They spend and then they worry about, the model of spending first and saving. It doesn't work. Well, we're going to teach you how that is not the case. Have a monthly budget. You need to have a financial plan. If you don't have a budget, how do you know how much you're spending? Where are you spending? Is it relevant? I have a personal budget every month. I buy whatever I buy. I put it on my spreadsheet. I know what I'm spending, what I'm buying, so that I'm mindful, because I'm being a good steward. I'm not living in poverty. I'm not cutting back on essentials. I have all the essentials I want. But I'm very careful that as a good steward, I only buy what I need and nothing more. and I wear some of the best clothes, right? But it doesn't mean that I go and buy brand clothes. I don't buy brand clothes. I buy good clothes, right? Which is cheaper and it lasts longer, right? Do not, you're becoming a real spender. People, as I said earlier, people get now maxed up with credit cards a way of life, because the marketing system out there in the world from the banks, from the credit card company is so tempting to spend. Now you got the new system where, I call it this new where you can buy without credit card, and then you pay 3-4 months payments. I think there's a company that's listed in Australian stock exchange. I can't remember the name now. Okay, so those all kinds of gadgets, tricks are coming into market to entice you to spend. Because why? When you go into debts, they are robbing you of what you could have put into your savings or into create wealth. For example, credit card is the worst, right? If you buy a credit card, if you don't pay on schedule every month, you only pay the minimum, you're paying 20% over credit cards. That 20%, that's your money that's been stolen from you, right? Which could have been gone into savings, into your investment. So you got to be very, very careful, very prudent. These are things where God talks about how do you manage. Christians talk about more the wealth of the wicked comes to the righteous. But you as a Christian, if you owe people money and you don't pay, right? If you borrow somewhere money and you have not started paid them, that's wickedness. God calls that wicked. So the wicked means doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or you're not Christian. If you're a wicked, is someone who fails to repay the loans or the money they borrowed, whether from your friends or families or whatever. That's wickedness, and you're not going to get the wealth from your wealth is going to go to the righteous, right? So if you do it, you must have a financial plan. You need to know, okay, if 10 years from now, where do I want to be? What sort of income I must build up? What sort of wealth I need to build? So you need to plan backwards. If you don't have a plan, God says, without vision, you perish. So these are some of the basic things that you need to be aware of, right? There are 7 types of income when you start going into wealth creation: earned income, salaries from businesses; profit income, where you buy and sell, or even from investments; interest income, for example, when you have investment properties, interest income from investing in banks or mutual funds or whatever, so many funds that you get interest income coming in. Dividend income from businesses, for example, if you own a business, as a shareholder, from the profits you can get dividends, or from stock market, with some big share banks or other investment shares, they produce regular dividends. Rental income is from property. Capital gains income, where you buy and sell assets, where you make profits, and then you obviously make some extra money out of that. And from royalties, where you can either write books, or you can create some online learning or something virtual that you create once, you put it out there into the internet, into the world, so people will subscribe to that. So that is where these are different sources of income that you need to be looking at. Where do I spread, so that you spread your income investments in all these areas, you're minimizing your risk. The key thing is to diversify your income so that you lose one, you have others. So we again will teach you these things, how these things can be done. Again, these are all biblical. It is nothing there that's worldly. It's about using your wisdom to be able to maximize, take opportunity of what's there in the worldly system that we as kingdom believers can capitalize on. Right? I'm going to give an example of compounding. Einstein talks about compounding as the 8th wonder of the world. Wealth creation is all based on compounding. Compounding takes time. It's not overnight success. I'm giving an example here, just using $1,000. If you invest just $1,000, and if let's say the return is 30%, you might say 30% is high. I can tell you it is possible. We have invested in products where you are getting that kind of investment return. So 30%, right? So in 10 years, that $1,000 becomes $13,778. In 15 years, that becomes $51,000. In 25 years, that becomes $705,000. This is only 1,000, right? You have not taken out the interest, you're just reinvesting the profits. And in 30 years, you got $2.6 million. Now, if you, let's say, if one of your children, you invest $1,000 for them one time at 18 years old, right? By the time they are 48 years old, they're going to have something like $2.6 million. That's just 1,000, not reinvest, not adding another capital, right? So that's how wealth is done. Wealth is created through compounding. So wherever you invest, reinvest, take the profit, reinvest, take the profit, reinvest, take the profit, reinvest. And then again, the return on investment must be higher than the cost of funding, like, you know, the fees that you pay, the inflation that's going to eat into you, all these things you got to factor in. Then you will see, okay, now I know how much I need to make. Today I'm 25, 30 years old. By 55, 60, 55, I want $2 million. Okay, now how do I go backwards? Okay, this is what I can put away. This is what I want. You work backwards, then you know what is the return on investment you need every year to reinvest, reinvest, reinvest to make sure that you're getting that number. So it's, you know, all these things we're going to show you if you're interested. And again, it's not, you know, you can't say I don't have money. I'm just showing you with $1,000. I can show a plan with somebody who's earning $2,000 in Australia. I can show you how to save money. It's about having the right mindset, right? So there are 8 keys that I wanted to talk about. Number 1, pay yourself first and start a habit of saving. That means what I'm saying is that put away what you need to save first and then live on the rest. Not spend and see what I can save. It never works. But if you say every month I'm going to save 15% of my income, put away the 15% and then you live on the 85%. Things will start changing. You will see, you know, you initially, oh, that's given me enough income, money to live on. You'll be surprised how you can adjust yourself and still living in a reasonably lifestyle. Number 2, manage your expenses by readjusting lifestyle. As I said, one of the things, if you've got a plan, if you've got a monthly budget, you know what is necessary for your family. You don't cut, you know, of course, don't want to compromise for your quality of life, for your children, food, and all these sort of things. But there are so many places you can save. For example, if you look at the number of subscriptions you might have, you can cut back. Number of, you know, if you're buying coffee outside, you're drinking 5 coffees a day outside, you're spending $5 a coffee. That's $35 a day, right? If you can cut back on 1 coffee, or instead of buying from, you know, from one of the cafe, go to 7-Eleven, you get $1 coffee, equally good, right? So it's the way you can change look into your budget very clearly, what you're spending every month. I promise you, each of you can save some money, right? And that money can be used as for investment and savings, or pay down the mortgage if you have, right? You must have 3 to 6 months emergency fund. You just look at COVID. When March came, God gave me a, you know, I was shocked at the number of people who were queuing up at Centrelink, and business was struggling to say, oh, we don't have enough liquidity. God reminded me of the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 were prepared, 5 were not prepared. Right, so we need to be like the 5 who are prepared. That means if you suddenly you lose a job because of some situation like this, if you have about 6 months emergency cash available, you don't panic. You say, okay, I have enough money to live on 6 months. What do I got time to think through this? I can pray and ask God direction. What do I do now? So you have a peace of mind. So you got to be proactive rather than reactive. Reduce debts fast, like Naresh have given you enough examples how you can pay down your mortgages faster, pay off your credit cards, whatever you see, because that is a bondage. And biblically, God doesn't want us to be borrowers. God wants us to be lenders. God says, I will give you all the provisions you need. But the worldly system has taught us to say borrowing is okay. Right? But certain debts are okay, like if you're buying for borrowing for mortgages. But then the key thing is, how do I pay down fast? Right? If I want to buy a car, do I need to buy a brand new car on a loan? Why do I need to buy on a loan? Why can't I buy a 3-year-old car, which is going to save me 10-20% of the value? Then I have less money to pay. So try and avoid paying that, you know, like one of my friend David is sitting here exactly, you know, we said, we were sharing yesterday or day before, you know, for example, you know, though our days, our parents, they never borrowed money. They saved until they can buy. They saved until they buy. So there's no hurry to buy something just because the market tells you that you need it. Right? So you got to be very prudent with your money. God is always watching you. How are you using what I'm giving you? Right? Invest periodically with long-term investment. Wealth creation is a long-term. Minimum is 7 years. So that's where Ruben said, I find wealth creation is boring. Yes, but you need to be disciplined. Don't keep shifting and changing your products, your ideas of your wealth creation models. It's discipline, build, and being perseverance. That's what it is, right? Invest in passive income with acceptable return on investment. Why do I say passive income? For example, I showed you an ATM earlier about ATM that gives you money. There is another ATM I call anti-time machine, where time works against you. Each of us got only 30, 40 years of working life to create wealth. So if you're working for $30 an hour, that 1 hour, and if you've got nothing else being produced during that hour in parallel with some other passive income, then you're losing that opportunity. So how can I, while I'm working for $30 an hour, how can I have other investment that's producing me equal amount or more or even less? Doesn't matter. But I've had multiple streams of income. That is why, so it's not about having 3 or 4 jobs. Because if you have 3 or 4 jobs, then you're going to be stressed out. Your family are going to be stressed out. You got no quality time with your family. That's not God's plan. That's labor. That's slavery. That's bondage. So it's about working smart, using God-given talents. We have negative inflation. Inflation is a silent killer. That's why, as Ruben said, I say don't put your money under the pillow. Because if you bought a sandwich you buy today will cost you $8, let's say. In 3 years' time, it might cost you $9. If you keep the money under the pillow, and you're only taking out the money every time to buy something, right? That $8 sandwich is going to cost you $9. But the worst part is that $9 is now no longer $9. That's actually worth about $7. That's why when Jesus talked about the parable of the talents, the man with the 1 talent who hid the talent in the ground, God called him wicked. Why? Because when the master came back, that money has lost value. By hiding it, he has lost value because inflation is eating into the power of your money. That's why he said, even if you put the money in the bank, I would have got some interest. So we get to use wisdom. We need to be very careful. That's how wealth creation is done. It's not, most of us, we're just thinking about, I got money in the super fund, I got a little bit of money in the savings. I buy an investment property, but then if I'm negatively geared in investment property, then it's liability. So always I say, let time do the compounding. That means you got to start planning backwards. Today I'm at this age, by that many years, I need that kind of income. How do I plan backwards? I've set my target there. I work backwards and start building up my wealth based on the return on investment. I hope this, what gives you some ideas, guys. This is just a taster of what is going to come, right? So basically, as I talked about, time is your anti-time machine. I've already talked about that. Historically, banks are giving you lower and lower interest now. When I came to Australia in 2005, if I put my money in the savings, in term deposit, I used to get 8 to 10%. Today, you get 1.5%. Inflation is about 1.8%. So your money is going backwards, right? Your salary is going lower. So you need to find, if people are being challenged now, right? So how? You got to harness the power of compounding, inflation beating gains for the long term. And the longer you wait, the more you need to put aside. So you got to start like today, when you should have started yesterday. It's never too late. Right? So that's my presentation. So that's just give you a taster, guys. And so open for any questions. If anybody's got any questions, happy to share.
That was great, Matthew. Thank you. We are having a coffee revolt happening during the chat session.
Awesome.
Yeah, but whether we should save coffee or not. Someone asked the question, what is ROI?
Return on investment. So return, for example, if you put your money in a bank, you get 2% return, that's the return on investment. For every $1,000 you put, you get 2% return, that's $200. But if you get, so the idea is to have a higher return on investment. That means if inflation is 1.8%, if the bank is giving you 1.6%, your money is going backwards. So you need to have at least higher than that. But if you're investing in certain funds, they have fees. For example, they may charge you a 2% fee. So 2% plus inflation, you get 3.6%. So your cost is already 3.6%. So you must have a higher return, at least 10%. So your net return is about 7%. So hope that explains that.
Awesome. Some of us don't drink coffee. Yes, I agree. I don't normally drink coffee, but my wife makes the most extraordinary coffee now that I can't but not drink it.
I have fresh brew every day too, but I buy the beans. I make it, so it costs me 70 cents a cup.
I think it's the principle behind it, huh? And Naresh applies to tea as well. There was another question earlier about someone asked us about inheritance. Was that? I think that was from David, if I'm not mistaken. And if it is, would you mind just asking that question again? Just put context around it. What was the question about?
Yeah, Ruben, I was asking that once you are up to the level that you only need to spend 10 to 20% of your expenses monthly, and you have the remaining 80% that you can do, to help others. So, as you have children, how many percents that you need to allocate to them as an inheritance planning? Yes, you don't want to give the 80% that, they are not being independent, on have a fighting spirit. So what would be a good balance of it?
It's a great question. Personally, for me, anything I would allocate in terms of wealth would be within my 10 to 20%. The 80% is that we. So I was born with a very big ambition, God ambition, which is to take over the world. No, it's so it's a mathematical formula that if I can influence 7 people every year with anything and teach them to influence 7 people, in just 11 years, I could influence 8.6 billion people. That's the whole world, bigger than the world population. Now, my influence is for kingdom. And so to answer your question is that when I see problems taking place, part of what we do with Project 61 is twofold. Number one is we give people a lending hand, but then within 2 to 5 years, we want them to be self-sufficient and help others. So as this money grows, we can do more projects in bigger ways. Like rather than helping one child go to a school, we are able to get to a place where we can start building schools that have kingdom values in them, not religious values. Now, so I would use my 80 to 90%. That's our focus. It's for kingdom, because if we are faithful in the little, but the 10 to 20% I have still includes more than enough for what I need to give, to produce wealth down the generations. Now, my children are not spoiled. Every time my son asks me, he's a tech addict, one of them, can I have a phone? I say, yep, but you have to find the way to produce it. Can you give me the money? Nope, it's not an essential. So he'll go create money through business. He started teaching guitar lessons. He's at the age of 11, 5 lessons for five lessons for $100. And he started teaching guitar lessons on how to worship God with 5 chords. And he produced enough money to buy himself a phone. But then I made him do it twice, and he gave away half the money the first time, right? So he's learning some skills. So but what I'm doing is doing what Matthew's suggesting, putting aside money in places like this Forex where it's building, in places where it'll build up. And I told my kids, if I put $1,000 away, 30 years, Matthew said, right? In 30 years, $2 million compounding. Now, do they need more than that? No, because they need the skills. Now, what is the legacy we leave is that I'm training up my children if they can take over the family business. And if they can't, I'll find other people that are disciples that we train. I will not just give it to my children to take over what God has given me, because God might have given them a different calling. And they will mess it up if I give it to them. All right. So that's the way I would look at it. But if they are faithful to it, and I've chatted to my children about this, my older ones, and I've said to them, there's this stuff that we've got to learn to do as family business, just like I've taken over my dad's and mom's idea of generosity. But passing that wealth on of the 80-90 doesn't need to be to the children. It has to be to the children we father, in that sense, who are responsible to see the vision to pass on. So that's my take. I don't know if others, Naresh, you've got a...
David, it's like this, right? Now, when the children of Israel went into the promised land, they were each given an inheritance. What they did with that inheritance is what determined how wealthy or how unwealthy, I don't say poor because they were not poor, they got free land, right? How wealthy or unwealthy they became. So now you could take your inheritance and do nothing with it, and it would produce nothing. You had this land, you had fig trees and vines, grapevines, and you didn't prune them and you didn't steward them, they didn't produce fruit. Some, maybe caterpillar came and ate some of the vines, you had to plant new vines. See, he had, the person who got the inheritance had to work it. And so when that person died, that inheritance went to somebody else. That person had to work it too. You see, they ate of that which they had not planted. They ate of that which they had not sown for a season, not every day. So there is this principle of stewardship that God initiated in the Garden of Eden before the fall that applies after redemption. So it's up to you. You want to leave 80% of your wealth to your children, that is entirely your business. But I urge you, even when you do that, just be sure that you are leaving a legacy of a Christian stewardship ethic in their life. Because it doesn't matter. If you leave them $20 million each, if they have no Christian stewardship ethic, that will be gone. See, so it's not about what you leave in terms of money. It's what you leave in terms of mindset and in terms of understanding. See, it would have been so easy for me to pay my children's tuition. But I wanted them to understand that if nobody was paying your tuition, you still have the power to do it. You have the power to make that money. You have the power to graduate debt-free. Unheard of in America. I counseled a young man who had over $120,000 in student loan debt. Accounting degree. Debits and credits, negative $120,000. You're coming out with an accounting degree. And he was running on the rim. And I can actually prove, I have a piece of a paper that he gave me that tells everybody what happened. He had 4 student loans. He's knocked out 2. This month, he will knock out a 3rd. He's getting married. He's bought a house. And he's on his way to financial freedom. He's a non-Christian man. So it's about what you do with your money, your assets. It's about what you teach your children to do with the assets you leave them. If you teach them well and you leave them $10,000 each, they will multiply. If you teach them well and you leave them $1 million each, they will multiply. If you don't teach them, you can leave them $10 million each. It won't amount to a hill of beans because that money will be gone.
If I may add something to what Naresh has well said. See, the word leave a legacy, inheritance, it is not purely about monetary value, it's not about wealth. Typically, in 3 generations, most wealth disappears. Created by the first generation is squandered by the second and third, and it disappears. That is historically, that's a statistics. So the key thing is we need to teach them about stewardship. What God talks about money. What is your role as a steward? So when you teach them these things, they will then be able to, what we give them, they must multiply. If they don't multiply, then we have not taught them how to steward it well. So it's not about, giving away money to them. You see, when for me, I give an example for myself. When my wife and myself, my late wife, she's in heaven now. We made a will. Okay. So we were saying, okay, if any one of us happens to us, what do we do with the children, for the children? Okay. So we agreed that if either one, and they were young, they were still, in uni, they were in their late, 19, 20 years old. And it just happened that, my wife was called home 7 years ago. My daughter and my son both were in unis. But, we discussed it and we agreed, we set aside, there are two ways we did it. One is initially we leave aside something for them they can start with. The moment one of us is no more longer here, then we'll also continue to build something that we will leave behind as a second stage, right? So that's what we did. So the moment my wife was called home, we gave them a certain amount of money, and thank God they were wise enough, they invested in 2 properties each, 1 property each as a deposit. And now that is giving them positive cash flow, right? Now, if something happens to me, then I have decided not everything is going to go to them, because now they're already on solid ground. They've won good footings. I can be generous to sow into the kingdom part of my what I have, and the rest can go to them. So that's the way it is. I've decided to do it. But the key thing is, because we have sown stewardship into their hearts, right? We have 100% peace. We know that they're going to run with it, and we can trust them with it, and God will help them to multiply it. So there's no one hard and formula that we can talk about, David. It's just individually, we need to know where we are, what is the capacity we have now, and how we are going to go forward with that.
Thank you, Matthew. That's so exciting. And I think the great thing is, when we go with God, he gives us the steps for our children. Because as Naresh started by saying, to each one he gave according to their ability. We also get to learn as fathers and mothers how to pass on that legacy to our children in the right way, with wisdom. Guys, I know there's a few more questions we're going to open, but just to honor your time, for those who do need to leave at the time we're going to finish in a few minutes officially. Just want to let you know, for those, this is not for everyone, but for those who feel like they want to take a deeper dive, they want to be able to actually take what we've taught and go through some steps, because see, we can leave here and have information overload, and we believe in information being transformational. We're big on that, because that's the position we need to move into, is how do we actually transform and see fruit taking place. As I mentioned before, we're giving of our time to have a 4-week training program starting on the first Saturday of October for 2.5 hours each. And in each of those training programs for 4 weeks, we will go through a plan of how you can look at more saving income, residual, how you can start to invest, and how you can start to create more income through the business side of things. And it's going to give you some step-by-step deeper dive processes. Plus, we will also have a one-to-one consult that you can create a personalized plan with all of us or one of us. And I think that's great. Now, we do this individually, but we're doing it together. And I really appreciate the time that Matthew and Naresh are putting in too. I can certainly vouch for them. It's normally a $5,000 course. We're actually doing it at 150 US dollars, which is about 205 Australian dollars, which is a brilliant opportunity. And that money is going to the Project 61 stuff that we do. So we're not taking it to consume it for ourselves. We're doing this because we want to give you an opportunity that's actually boots on the ground. And we're quite serious on it. We take a small group of people, we walk with them, we take what we do seriously, because we want to see transformation. As often as we have said, we've got to get ourselves up and about before we can help others. So the three of us have been able to do that, and we've got stories where we've come from nothing, and we've all got different stories that you will get to hear over the 4 weeks with us. So if you're interested in being part of that, if you can just indicate to me in the chat group, you can put your name and WhatsApp number or email address, and I'll connect up with you later and let you know. And if you need to know more details, but it's literally for 4 weeks, 4 Saturdays in the morning around this time, 10 to 12:30 Australian time. And we literally deep dive a little bit further into this. and get people actually having practical stuff working for them. It's also helpful, and I really appreciate some of the pastors on. It's really good to see Pastor IB, who I haven't seen for, I think, decades. He knew me when my name was Nilshan, which it still is, but but I use my first name now. So that's how long we've known each other. For pastors, it's such a great opportunity that I'm seeing around the world with Matthew and myself, building ministers who are self-sufficient, and that for the rest of their lives, they're not depending on someone else or aid from outside, but they're self-sufficient. And that's really exciting for us as well. And we're teaching skills that can teach others. Our form of teaching is a little bit different. We don't just give you information, we give you practical, but we also teach you through what we call a 4D process. By the time you finish, you can teach others the same thing. Once you've got the truth and you're walking the truth, you can teach others the same thing. And that's really great. Yeah, thank you for some of you who've been writing now. But just want to honor those who need to head off because it is 12:30 Australian time. But if anyone wants to stay on, we'll stay on for a little while longer and love to take more questions, have a chit chat about where you're at. If we can answer any questions during that time. Matthew, thank you again for your sharing. Naresh, thank you again for your sharing. Pastor IB, have a good wedding.
Yep.
Enjoy.
God bless you guys. Thanks.
Yes, IB, God bless you.
Okay, God bless you. Bye for now. We'll catch up later.
Yep.
No problem. And for the others, if you're interested in being part of this, please just put your details down. Thank you for some of you putting it in privately to me. You can do it private. I'll catch up. Yes. Any questions? I'm noticing, Walter, you've unmuted. Is there a question you had?
No, not at this time. Nourish in the earth, but pretty close. We need to have.
Sorry, we can't hear you very clearly, Walter.
I'm sorry. I think not at this time. We can discuss it further with
Naresh. Yeah. How did you find it? Was there anything in particular from the today that's spoke to you? As you know, you said you were getting into retirement side of things. So was there anything that gave you some strategies that you felt you can apply for the future?
Not really, but we probably would like some more guidance on how to invest in like you said, invest in low risk but high return investments. Those are the things we're not very certain about. So maybe that's something we'll like to look at to put some of our savings in. We do have savings. It's just that it's like you said, we don't use it better effect.
Yep. Love to have a chat with you. Does Naresh, you've got their contact details. Would you be okay for me to give you a call sometime next week and happy to have a chat, or we can do a Zoom connection and just we can tell you what we're doing, and then it's up to whether you think that'll be suitable. But I know because you're in Australia, the platform we use, you'll get some really good results.
Sure. Okay.
Ruben, you have their email, right?
Right, I do, yes, because you signed up.
So go ahead. I mean, that's up to you guys.
Yeah, okay.
Are you on WhatsApp, Walter?
Yes, I am.
If you could throw me your WhatsApp number maybe in the chat group. I am a little bit poor on email, but I'm pretty good on WhatsApp.
Yeah, sure.
That'll be.
I'll give you my mobile.
I will, Walter, let you send it individually to him.
All right, up to you, Nash. That's fine.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Love to hear from you. What's been Deji, how has it been for you? You've been up, it's like 3 o'clock, I think, in the morning in England. I mean, I'm just amazed.
Yeah, well, for me, it's been fantastic. I mean, like one of my mentors would say, when you attend trainings, you either learn something new or you're reminded of something you already know. And so for me, it's been an interesting blend and mix of both of them. I'm quite looking forward to the next 4 weeks.
Awesome. Are you gonna handle the overnights? Sleep during the day?
I will. I'll be fine.
I would be really I'm looking forward to having you come on board with us and just deep dive, because I know this will help you immensely. So, and you said you know Pastor IB, huh? What a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, from when he was single. I mean, when he was still courting his wife.
We missed the opportunity of having him here to hear all of that. No, it's wonderful. It'd be great to have you with us.
Yes.
What particularly stood out for you?
I think for me, what stood out was, on one hand, I think the way the point 7 was articulated, because it was something that I'd always struggled with, because, you know, we usually face this struggle between the personal passion for the work of the kingdom, but then the reality that you're exchanging time for dollars, and so you have to work, you know, and because of that, you cannot focus on the things you would love, you know, to really spend your time on, you know, and so, you know, it's probably a major thrust for me in terms of like, okay, well, having a system where wealth is being created passively, and I'm able to focus on the things of ministry, you know.
That's a blessing. The good news is it's there, and the great news is we're walking in it, so we're not weary. So I'd love to see how we.
You're looking very fresh, you know.
They that wait on the Lord renew their strength. Thank you. Bless. David, I noticed you're from Family First. You got the background, which is awesome, huh?
Oh yeah.
Where are you calling in from?
I'm right now calling in from Jakarta, Indonesia.
Wow.
My family and 2 children are in Melbourne. So I'm stuck in Jakarta due to the restriction to fly, and with 2 weeks quarantine if I'm back to Melbourne. So with Matthew, we journeyed together in our ministry called Family First, which is to strengthen families through our programs like with mental health, financial health, physical health, how to use technology wisely. So that's our journey.
Wow, love it. So that is
David is the president for Family First Australia.
Beautiful. I've heard a lot about Family First, and I've heard a lot about good things that they're doing. It's great to meet you. Thank you for what you're putting forward in this nation. How awesome would it be to see some of these distractions like the wealth and other things, you know, start to be thrown aside so we can actually start to live purpose.
Yeah. I have been reading a lot of this about the financial education. Initially started with the worldly teaching like the Robert Kiyosaki, you know, Warren Buffett. But lately, with what you've shared, it's also the biblical principle on that. You know, a lot of people are mixed. Like if you look some of the worldly, for example, there's certain ethnic where they believe that the wealth should be circled just around the big families. So they have, you know, just the family within that big group. So, and then inherit from one generation to other generation. So recently I'm transformed by God in terms of how to be a better steward. And so thank you for sharing, Matthew, Nares, and Ruben.
Thank you for being here. And if that one thing or 2 things, you know, just help spur you on, we're excited. And what, you know, that's a great opportunity towards our generation too.
We are very happy if you can also share some of this into small articles, and we can post it into our social media, so it can also all families.
I will be doing that, David, because yesterday David and I had a chat.
Yeah.
So they want us to put some blogs or articles into the website. So we will be working together. We'll come up with some solutions.
And I think, I'm sure Naresh wouldn't mind doing this as well. We all come from different generations of our children. Matthew has got grown-up children. One is married already. Naresh has got adult children who have graduated and have paid off their debts and are moving into jobs. I've got children from the youngest is 3 up to the eldest is 20. So they're just, in the university and the high school and the primary school period. So, certainly we have insights in all our levels of life, what we would think is best for our families in the wisdom that we know now, which I wish I could go back and talk to my younger self many times as well. But at least I glean a lot of wisdom from Matthew and Naresh about what I should do because they're ahead of me.
Naresh, you want to say something just now?
Yeah, I don't know, David. The corporate world, the world system runs on deficit spending. I mean, take a simple company like Boeing, right? Boeing is a used to be a very cash-rich company. I did a study on Boeing's financial statements for about for 7 years. And it's very interesting from about 2012, how the CEO manipulated the earnings per share by taking their cash and buying back their stock. Now, this 737 issue hit, right? With that, the COVID issue hit. Do you know Boeing is laying off hundreds of people because they have a cash flow problem. How can a rich company have a cash flow problem? It is violating fundamental principles, divine principles. You have to have a reserve for a rainy day. Rainy days come whether you're corporate, rainy days come whether you are a not-for-profit. Rainy days come, not-for-profit means, you built something and a tornado came and hit it. What are you going to do? See, end of the day, the fundamental principles that God has put out in the Bible operate and are applicable to every facet of life, right? Including yours, including your ministry, your work. So stewardship is something that is all encompassing. Stewardship is all encompassing.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thank you, Naresh. Just if anyone else, thank you for those who've been responding to me about the program. Feel free, if you haven't yet and you want to know more, you can ask here, or if you're interested to do that program. As I said, it's 4 weeks and it's $150 and it's going to be with the 3 of us helping just deep dive a bit more. But David, do you mind if I could just say something that I felt the Lord was saying as Naresh is talking to you? Sometimes he puts some prophetic words on my life. Do you mind if I just share that with you? Yeah. I just sensed 3 things for you. One was I just felt the Lord say, expand your vision and find small pockets internationally that will run with what you have. Rather than looking for a whole nation to run with it. I don't know if that makes sense to you more than it makes sense to me, but it does make sense as I'm saying it. I felt Lord say, expand your vision. So it's outside. I believe it's beyond Australia, but look for small pockets of people around different nations who would actually run with this truth of the family first and understanding the concept. And as you create small pockets in different countries, it'll start to explode over the generations. But it will do so in your lifetime. You will start to see multiplications rather than trying to wait for a nation to move. Right? It's the minority that makes let me say the vocal minority that makes a difference. Secondly, I felt the Lord say that He's going to cause. I see you as, and I've seen this in a couple of others, but I'm excited about what I'm seeing with you. It's a well, and I don't know if you can visualize this, but in the well there are 3 layers. There's dirt, there's fresh water, and under that is oil. And so I felt that you are trying to dig the fresh water to try and trying to dig the dirt, I should say, to try and get to the fresh water. But God wants you to go even deeper because I'm taking you to the oil. And once that oil hits, that's the gold of the treasure within you that's going to keep coming out. So there's some stuff that I just felt the Lord saying that you're shipping out, but there's even deeper stuff that's going to come. That's revelation that God has called you for. Thirdly, get ready to travel. There's going to be nations you're going to travel to for short periods to make big impact. Set up programs that will be beyond themselves, giving them the handout ups that they will need, and just get ready to travel. It'll be in about 6 months to come. There'll be these opportunities to travel, and then it'll start to build up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was in a corporate life until I was 47, being the board members. But when you are in a job, you work, 12 to 18 hours per day. So you're kind of like enslaved running on a treadmill, that you don't have time for your family and for ministry. At 47, I stopped and set up my own business, and I start to believe that I have more time for my family and then to bless others through my ministry. So I was in banking for quite a long time. So the journey with family first is basically started with my own guilty feeling that a lot of people like me in professional life, that they are enslaved. They know family is important, but they couldn't give time. Okay, so through this journey is to bless more families, to see more family are strengthened, restored, and I believe in what the Bible said, that before the second coming of Christ, family has to restore first, and we can harvest many nations for Jesus. Yeah.
Wonderful. We're just really blessed and excited for you. Thank God. Yeah. Eloy, I don't think I've met Eloy. Does anyone, does Naresh or Matthew know Eloy? Welcome. Love to hear how this has blessed you, Eloy.
Eloy is a person that I just introduced to
your
this
friend.
place, and he got no idea at all. So this is his first time.
Wow. Phoebe, how did you find it?
I have experienced quite a lot about these all things even since I was born, because my family have been investing since the early 20s, and they got their first house in I think 22 or something, but that was very hard in Hong Kong. Anyhow, I learned a lot from them, and I started investing when I was 15, and then I used my own name when I was 18. Then I came to this country 20, and I haven't been doing much, but I believe this is a great way to maintain and build up and sustain myself. And also I really want to have financial freedom. Not that I want to be lazy, but I think I should use my time wisely to do other things rather than going for a job on a daily basis.
I love that, Phoebe. Financial freedom is not laziness. In fact, the key to it is what we call economic independence, which is what I retired into.
Yeah.
But it's not being lazy. It's what Naresh said. It's tending the garden. And I often say, don't be busy, be occupied, because busy means being under Satan's yoke. And Jesus never asked us to be busy. He asked us to be occupied. Because if you meet someone who's busy, they're always, oh, I'm busy this, I'm busy that, I have no time. If you're occupied, I have a very occupied day, but an occupied life, but I enjoy it. I love it. There is such
The difference of busy and occupied is, one is doing what you love, what you have passion for. Another thing is you have no interest, but you have to.
Yeah, otherwise you don't get to pay the bills or don't get to eat. Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Thank you, Phoebe, for bringing Eloy on as well.
Eloy, yes,
Eloy?
and he's from South America, so his English is not very good. He has been trying his best, and I've been explaining the whole time.
Wow. Well, I just want to encourage him. Just being in that environment may spark something that God can do amazing things with him in the future.
Mm-mm.
And thank you for helping him to just explain things as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. John, how did you find the session, mate? You get it'll unmute eventually.
Why don't you help him out?
I'm trying to, but I can't. Oh, here we go.
I think I found it. Yeah, it's been informative. It's opened my eyes to a few different things to look at. Different ways of looking at investing, and yeah, it's been good.
Wonderful. Looking forward to, hopefully you can join us on the journey as well. And just start to delve a little bit deeper into something that can help you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to it too.
Awesome, mate. Thank you. Mom Carol, I see you there.
And our brother Ruben, you people have been a blessing so much to us. Yes, we've been hearing about all this. Sometimes we need to be reminded. And we know that it's good to have a very good, healthy, breakthrough of or good mindset of developing wealth. So what really amazes me today is the key to financial breakthrough, the 6 monetary mistake. One of them, which is buying expensive things that you don't even need or you cannot afford. It truly touches me because I've been there. Sometimes I buy things that even when you go where I keep it, I have not used, So that is, it's not worth it. And that's where we need to change and have a very good mindset towards all these things. And another quote that touches me again is the man that said that we get money. We can't, let me see where I put it down. Yeah. We have, you cannot have money or you cannot save money. You can be young without money, but you can't be old without getting money, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can do without money when you are young, but now that we are growing old, we cannot do without money, and then we have to find a way to establish or to invest. And I thank God that I have started, and I really, really need to invest more, maybe through another means, which I know I have a gift of writing. And so I'm trusting God to have a income through royalty of my book. So that's another investment. And if there is other way again to go, I will love to, because my vision and my heart is to be a blessing to as many as possible in my lifetime. I don't want to, I hate seeing people suffering, and I hate seeing people who are in need and they cannot be helped. And if I don't have to help, I don't feel good. So all these things is good for us to learn and be able to establish ourselves in the position to be able to be a blessing to as many as possible, even to those who comes around us in our generation. So I love it, and I thank you so much, because I believe by the grace of God, we will all get there. I will get
Mama, thank you. It is a blessing watching your journey. Mom Carol is Papa Luke's beautiful wife, and it's great having her and Gloria, who's one of their daughters, one of my sisters, on, which is really a blessing. But you know, Mama, one thing you said is true. It's great having ideas like the book, etc., and the principles. Once we learn the principles on how those things can be monetized, they're life principles. You know, I'm really excited what Papa Luke and Mom Carol are doing. They've started to invest, and they just did little steps, and now their interest is compounding every 3 months, and it's brilliant. It's such an excitement to see that things are working without them. But now that next step, how do you generate from nothing? Papa Luke started a coaching program. Really exciting one this evening. So thank you for those journeys. Can I encourage you that if that it may be worth coming to the 4 week training if the time allows you, because that will help Mom Carol will help you maybe take one thing like the book and go down the path of researching and saying, will this actually be useful to me? Can I actually monetize this? Something I've personally learned is that there are some things that will touch the world without making money, and there'll be other things that will touch the world in making money. And if I can get to know the difference, then I don't feel like I'm disappointed if something doesn't work. So those are lessons that have helped me. And so the training will help you start to do what we call research, researching an idea, taking it down the next step. For example, the books that I've written, I'm not looking at it to make money from. They're like my calling card. For some people, writing a book is going to be that's what's going to be that next brilliant step that you can, as you said, make royalties from. So assessing that is up to the market as well, and the heart of what God has said. So can I encourage you? Maybe take another step forward and say, if it's important, do the 4 week training. See if that will help you as well. Start to evolve. You know, but thank you for the feedback. We're so blessed. Gloria, we haven't heard from you, but I don't know if you're happy to unmute and just tell us if anything helped you, because I know you started the business recently, and we're going down an entrepreneurial way. Sometimes, is she
Yes,
there? Yeah, I can't make that funny comment I was going to make since you turned up.
I was in the kitchen.
That's okay. How have you found it?
Yeah, it was very, very, very insightful. There's a few things that I have definitely learned and will apply to my future endeavors. So it's interesting. I know some of it I have already heard from you.
Yep.
I think when you were speaking, I have already heard but from the other two guys, that was very insightful. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, hoping that the next step with you will be a blessing in just taking it into a more practical side for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, sis.
Thank you.
A blessing. If no one has any other questions, I'll see if Matthew and Arish have any comments. Otherwise, we'll pray and finish off. If anyone has any questions on anything that they feel they want to just ask or clarify. Wonderful. Okay, so Naresh, Matthew, anything from you guys? You're all good? Yeah,
Nothing.
Wonderful. Naresh, thank you. It's getting to 10 o'clock over there, 11 o'clock?
Yeah, 11.
In the US? Wonderful. On a Friday night, your Saturday morning will be good. Ours has been spectacular. We're into the afternoon here. David, Indonesia is 3 hours behind at the moment, right? So you are still morning. And have a great continuous of morning. Deji, I think you're about 3 in the morning there, so you better go and get some rest. Guys, thank you so much, Walter. And I've forgotten your beautiful wife's name. I'm sorry.
Yutika.
Yutika, yes. Yutika, thank you so much for being here. We've appreciated from Canberra. John, great to have you here. Eva, South America, bless you. Phoebe from NT, thank you. From Darwin, bless you. And Gloria and Mom Carol.
Thank you, everyone.
What a blessing.
Bye.
Have a great rest of the weekend and forward as well. Sorry, Mom Carol. We can't hear you. Say that again.
One of my friends were here, but I think she's gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Follow up with him, see how he went. Yeah, it's great. Glad that he make it. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. Lift up his countenance before you, cause his face to shine upon you, and give you peace in all you do. Yeah, shalom. Thank you. Bless you guys.
Hello, thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.